move that up. So we had just recently got the 4th ending of 8, and we had to deny something. A couple of the endings are right next to one another, so hopefully it doesn't take long. Because I'm kind of stoked to play an actual game. While I was floating in the darkness, I heard a voice. Regrettably, it took me far too long to realize that it was your voice, crying for help, calling for me, because I'm tired as hell today. That's alright. We'll read anyways. You may have lost hold of your old self, but somewhere deep down, you kept calling for me, which is how I found my way here. I refuse to believe that isn't real. I refuse to stomp on a love that survived for hundreds of years. I'm still confused if we're a guy or a girl. By all means, hate me. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. I don't care if you spit bile at me for the rest of eternity. I will not let go of this hand, because you asked me not to. I could kill you right now. If that's what you want, then go right ahead. But I'll fight you with all I've got. Giselle, I've missed you too much to lose you again. I don't care if it makes you despise me. I don't care if you think I'm inconsiderate. I want to save you. But I'm not the Giselle you once knew. I'm an abomination. My mind and body are twisted beyond recognition. I'm a disgusting monster. The woman you fell in love with does not exist anymore. Just forget about me. You are the one who should be saved, set free from me. You look the same to me. Your manner of speaking, your temperament, your physical appearance may have all changed. But you are still the same Giselle I love. You should never have done anything for a foolish girl like me. You gave your life to save mine, and I hated you for that. Never once considered how you felt with those knights pointing their blades at you, or what drove you to allow me to live. I should have, but I didn't. I was the one who trusted the witch. Yeah, because I don't know if I'm still confused about the white-haired girl. I was trying to bring my mom up to date, or up to speed on the game but I don't know. I think there's too many things not told yet, and they keep rewriting what the events are. And yet I complained when you never showed up. I unfairly resented you for it. I'm a horribly self-centered person. I'd be so much better off with someone pure and unburdened with all this nasty suspicion and doubt and animosity. You'd be so much happier with someone like her. Giselle, you've been paying attention, haven't you? You were there for all the tales I told you. Everything that has happened up to this moment. So you should just know how loathsome a woman I am. Weak to even keep herself together. I mean, she did cook people, though. She made people stew, and that should get you bonus point. No, Giselle. I'm nothing compared to her. Giselle! See? You haven't changed one bit. You still get louder and louder the more you lose your temper. Why do you feel the need to compare yourself to her? Because she's a better match for you. Giselle, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. I'm so sorry for keeping you waiting. I want you to believe me when I say that I dearly missed you from the bottom of my heart. I wanted you back, and that has not changed. Believe me. I love you. I missed you so much too. Like, see, that was a super short sub-chapter if this is what's switching. She leaps into my arms, and she's just as cold as ever. Her warmth-deprived body feels like the embodiment of all my mistakes. I wrap my arms around her. I'm immediately filled with unparalleled relief. Even as she sobs into my chest, her body cold as ice. And then the darkness parts. We are once more at the top of the observation tower. It's still shrouded in miasma of shadows, but we're back in the mansion now. We've emerged from the darkness in our heart. Michelle? Yes. I'm sorry. For what? I never should have erased you from my memories. Yours are the memories I needed to hold on to the tightest. I'm so glad to hear you say you still love me. Even after learning the truth about me. Thank you so much. I'm incredibly relieved. As I watched, it felt like you were slipping farther and farther away from me, Giselle. It terrified me. Come on, Doc. Maybe it makes me a coward or pitiful. But I was truly afraid of you coming to hate me. I'll never hate you, Michelle. Ever. Thank you. We must leave this place. What? It would not be wise for us to remain here longer. The air is still thick with darkness. But the front door won't open. And even if we could get out from somewhere, what would happen to us? We finally found each other again after so long. I want to share a quiet, modest life with you like before. What if that all disappears when we step outside? After all, we are... It isn't finished, but I feel like I know what she was going to say. We're different now. He's stepped far outside the bounds of mortality. And the same could be said of me. I am the man known as Michelle, is long since dead. The mansion itself does not follow the rules of nature either. As beings no longer in possession of their proper forms, stepping outside these walls could very well mean the end of us. I can't say what might lay in store, but we must return. Even though by staying here, we could be together for all time. I don't imagine that would be a very happy life. There's no sun here, no chirping birds, no trees or breeze to rustle the leaves. If we stay here, the nothingness will eat away at us. We have finally reattained our own selves. We need to take action now while we can. What if I say I want to stay here? Then I'll drag you out. It's almost like we've switched places. Back then, it was you who wanted to stay. It's also kind of funny hearing you speak favorably of the outset, and especially the sun. The words, "That's all thanks to you," are on my lips, but before I can say them, I find myself hypnotized by her smile. Smile. It's picked me up so many times. She claims it's her only redeeming feature, but if she didn't have it, my life would have gone in a very different direction. Oh, double booties. I'm grateful to have gotten that back too. Say, we're in the middle of a very touching reunion, wouldn't you say? I suppose so, yes. And wouldn't you say there's a certain way these things usually go? Huh? You're gonna make me say it? Well, I was hoping you might perhaps kiss me. What? What? Oh, seriously, what? Where did that boldness from a second ago go? What happened to all that momentum you were building? Oh yeah, about that, I think it might be more appropriate later. Later? How much later? After we find an exit. Or, you know, in a hurry. Here's making excuses because you don't want to. Don't be pouty. I swear that's not it. Giselle, get that for when things aren't as crazy. I can't relax and enjoy it right now. What are you, 12? Oh, hush. Alright, fine. You better keep your word, got it? Promise. Let's go then. Let's find our way out of the mansion. There, our frozen time should begin moving again. That's hopefully where our future awaits. It will be. No, we'll make it so. Yes, we will. If we leave the mansion, it should release our souls as well. In doing so, should finally provide her deliverance. I mustn't hesitate. And all of this, for both of us, we must start again. This is where we... Huh? Darkness. It's a blackness purer than anything I've experienced in this house. Not a trace of light anywhere to be found. Why did I ever think the house would let us go so easily? Why did I ever think our time in the darkness was over? Michelle! The darkness searches through the open door like a wave, flooding the observation tower. Like ivy growing wildly to cover every last inch of every surface, consuming, defiling, eroding. Our fingers slip apart. And concentrated rancor rains down upon us. Which chicken are you? Ah, how hideous a world this is. No, Michelle, please. Don't let go of my hand. No nostrils. Does she have no? Zal. They're very small. I said I would never let go again. I said I would get her out of this place. I swore I would. But as hard as I tried to stretch, I can't reach her hand. Oh, Michelle, I can't move my body. I went out of my way to give you a beautiful tragedy. Why must you so stubbornly insist on this ugliness? The more you struggle, my dears, the thicker and more palpable your filthiness becomes. Get my fancy-dancy Twitch shirt on. That's sickening. Wouldn't you agree? She's always spat her bile with a song-like cadence, singing like a little girl, tripping like a morning bird. She celebrates misery, and she watches for the worst possible moment to let out a cackle. Morgana! What are you up to anyways? Anything fun? Exciting? Good. I swear, you two are hopeless. I pity you. You give up my deepest condolences. Let go. Let me go. Don't take me away from him. Giselle! The darkness seeping into her grew thicker by the moment, and its black tendrils weren't just wrapped around her, but me as well. Stop this, Morgana. Let her go. Wow, nothing more original? I need a devoted puppet to protect this mansion for me. But I can't give her up, not even at your request. Besides, why should I give back something you threw away? Something you abandoned again and again. What are you talking about? You still haven't figured it out, my dear. Or you're just feigning ignorance for your own convenience. You always did like to withhold anything that might prove disadvantageous. Michelle! Now give me your hand. Reach harder. Reach as hard as you can. Grab my hand. I can't do it. It's like I'm tied up. Can't move at all. He's right there. She waited so many hundreds of years for me, finally managing to reclaim herself. And she's right there. So why can't my hand go any further? Why can't I reach her wrist, her hand, or even a strand of her flowing hair? Why can't I get her back again? Get it. We're running. Her voice is growing fainter, more distant. The darkness shrouds her, taking her away from me. Her arms, her fingers, and hands she led me with. Her smiling face. Her once glowing grin. And her now more modest smile. Game's going well. Reading. What to do? The witch's darkness is stealing every last bit of her. Going on trance. Please don't do that. Take me instead of her. Why does it always have to be her? Ah, you bitch. Why? Because your work is done, my dear. By all accounts, as the one who resurrected me, you should have become my guide as well. But you let a silly woman emotionally manipulate you, and you gave up on cursing others. And then you threw away your life. You led it into thinking you were protecting her. Morgana! You already gave up the position once. Don't think you can just walk up and ask for it back. Set Giselle free. I'll do anything you ask. If you need a puppet, I'll be your puppet. If you want more from me, it's yours for the taking. But I can't leave her to remain in this cursed house any longer. You certainly have let your obsession for this girl take its toll on you. I much prefer the old pessimistic, cynical Michelle. It wasn't until I met Giselle that I truly became human. Made me into what I'm supposed to be. I can't lose her again. Is that so? Well, you'll come to the harsh realization soon enough that everything you saw in her was just a facade. It was not. Alright then. You want her back so badly, you can have her, but in exchange, I want you to entertain me. Will you endure maddening agony for me? Will you know pain enough to make you howl? Will you face despair again and again and again? If you need her that badly, you can bear anything, can't you? If that is what you want from me, if that will allow her to see the sun once more. Brilliant. think we should stop making deals with her. Wait, Morgana! As you wish, foolish boy. I was looking for a way to keep busy anyway. I'll use you to kill some time. Find your way to me, my dear. Find your way to me without going mad or succumbing to despair. And do hurry, or she might lose her mind again. Those memories you forced her to relive, those hundreds of years she spent locked away in her shell, all that fear that ate away at her, a bit much to have to reflect on with a clear mind, wouldn't you say? That's why I need to be there for her. Why I have to get her out of here. That's my obligation to her. You're the one who let go of her hand, though. You can put a broken cup back together, but the slightest tap in the wrong place will shatter it again. The witch's cackling fades into the distance. My outstretched hand is completely enveloped in the shadows. I can't even make out the faintest outline of it. I can't tell if I'm sinking, floating, or being pushed along some invisible stream, or falling with incredible speed. My eyes are open, but they can detect nothing. The complete lack of sound is almost painful. Nothing. Anything. Anywhere. Void. My consciousness begins to drift. Vague remnants of the feeling of her hand in mine are my only link to reality. Another no-scope? My one and only landmark. Giselle. I must get her back. He waited, enduring for hundreds, no, almost 1,000 years. And now, it's my turn to act. I have to hold the resolve, hold it firm. That I never forget her again. That I never lose myself again. Even if I'm consumed by the darkness. You must never back down. You must never look away. You must never lose her. I hope that wasn't a story behind the story. Storyception. Alright, visual novel person, you might be pushing this whole story shit too much. Alright. Better get the save going. Oh, got it. Hey, Master? Hello? Is anyone there? Master. Oh good, welcome back. In real terror to seeing you in this situation. What's gotten into you? I thought you'd fallen asleep with your eyes open. I'm not accustomed to people needing my attention. Or I suppose talking face to face at all. This is my mansion? Giselle's right in front of me, not like she always did. Smiling for me. You're not hurt. Giselle? You've been alone for 10 years, but now I'm living here with you. You say we do a little practice conversation. Who exactly do you think I am? Yeah, no offense intended. I thought it'd be nice if you had more back and forth skills. In short, you're saying I'm such a poor conversationalist, I need training? Hey, don't get so snippy. That's not what I meant. I'm saying we don't talk enough. I want to talk to you more. It's fun. No, this is an old memory from when Giselle first returned to the mansion. We were just starting our new life together. We were still feeling around in the dark. What exactly would you like to talk about then? Each other, of course. I have nothing to say. Not be so rash. It can be anything. Things you like, things you don't like. Start with something small, insignificant. Does that serve any purpose? It does. Yes. The more you know about someone, the closer you feel to them, and the better friends you can become. What's going on, Bard? Welcome, Raiders. I'm Kenner OAG, currently playing the house in Fata Morgana. Oh. We got a butt-shaking follow. It's a commercial. How long have I been on? That's weird. I ran commercials in the beginning, so there would be none. Yeah, it's Twitch. I would run a, I don't know, ad blocker if you're not subbed, you know? Which you are. So, Weird. Wait, are you? For the fake one? No, it's a... How's the rest of your stream? What are you doing? Bayonetta? Thanks for the defense and the shouts, guys. The more you know about someone, the closer you feel to them, and the better friends you can become. Is that how it works? Now that's out of the way, ask me something. Ask me anything, I'll gladly answer. Her eyes are lit up like a child's. Is she really so eager to converse with me? I don't believe it. What made you pick Bayonetta? What's the matter? I'm ready for anything. Very well, I'll ask whatever comes to mind. I saw Super Robot Wars 30, I think is coming out, or is out? Go for it. You haven't told me your age. My age? Take a guess. You would just tell me anything. Wait, do I actually have to guess? You're 18. Probably younger than us. Look like I'm still in my teens. You talk like a young lady. Really? Because I've been trying to act older. Expecting to get asked that? About why you picked a game? I mean, consider you've been playing reading games and otherwise you play survival games or city building games. I would think it's pretty reasonable to ask someone why they're playing Bayonetta, which is none of those. So how old are you? I don't think I've ever seen you play an action game in the 3 years I've seen you play games on stream. 20. I was born as summer was setting, so I'll be 21 soon. I'd like you to sing a song with me on my birthday. Not a chance. Oh, come on, have a heart, please. You just wait, I'll make you sing. Now it's your turn. How old are you, Master? I recall I should be 27 this year. Oh, you're much older than I expected. Oh, I thought we were like 24. What did you expect? You were very mellow. That I would expect of an older man. Every once in a while you give the impression of a teenage boy. For what it's worth, I mean that in a good way. What it's worth. What about your family? You want to know about my family? You're pretty normal, I think. Not much interesting about us. We've been able to get citizenship in the capital, but we weren't super rich or anything. In fact, it was because we were having money troubles I ended up here. Not easy for 3 women to make it on their own. You didn't have a father or any brothers? No, we lost my father to a plague when I was young. And since then it's been me, my mother, and my older sister. But they're both bright, lively people. Our family motto is, a smile can make anything better. Explains why she can still smile now. Even after just nearly succumbing to despair. I've always kind of wanted some brothers, though. Men are more suited to physical labor, yes. Not quite what I was going for. But like, I don't know. The kinds of things you would ask a brother and a sister for help with are different. I try to explain it, but a guy with broad shoulders and muscular arms is someone you can look up to, for instance. Someone who looks like they'd always keep you safe. She's never been betrayed by family, it would seem. Can't even imagine family hurting her. I mean, I'm pretty sure she can imagine a family hurting her. This came from a family that was hurting her. Your family. She has no idea that those closest to you, those who are supposed to care about you more than anything, can be your greatest enemies. That blood is a bond heavier than any chain. Master, I believe your brothers are still on your side. Been so long, I don't know if they are. I don't know what they think about me anymore. Sure, they're still your allies. You want to believe it too, don't you? You want to believe they're not enemies. Let's believe in them together then. Anything you want to believe, you should. Guess I wanted to play something with a glamorous, badass lady protagonist when it was non-binary last week. It's such a better way to look at the world than the other way around. You have to be positive, or one day you'll crack. Always remember to have faith so that doesn't happen. Wouldn't you play a game that has a non-binary character then? I don't understand. She's honest about her emotions in a way I simply cannot. Whatever. How was it? You said it was fabulous. She's the exact opposite of me in that regard. I literally just grabbed that and Bayonetta 2 and Astral Chain for my Switch. I'm kind of stoked to play them as well. They always kind of reminded me of, what's it called? They kind of remind me of like Devil May Cry, which is the more fun action games where it's kind of silly but enjoyable combat. And yet she can still read me. I don't get it. How can she understand me like that? It's like she can read my mind. If only I could just tell her everything. Make it all another page in her mindless chatter. Well, as long as you're happy, I'm happy. It's as much as I can delve into any of that jazz, so I don't know. I'm glad to hear that it's actually a fun game. It's got a lot of great reviews. I want to play it as well. Get everything weighing down on me off my chest. Is something the matter? You're cruel. What? I said you're cruel. I'm sorry, ignore me. It seemed like it was one of those ridiculous games. Is the story any good in it? Like, I mean, I know it's usually not the big draw to those kinds of games, but that'd be a nice bonus. In preparation for the day you can finally go back home, you're going to have to stop being such a picky eater. Where'd that come from? Think about how terrible it would be if, when the day you finally came, you went back sickly and weak and emaciated. You wouldn't be able to enjoy yourself. You're still alright, Master. You're doing okay. Let's try to keep you healthy. Alright, go this one. And then this is almost the end of the chapter. It says there's one more thing and I get a bad ending then. Wow, how very forward of you. Huh? My taste in men is the last thing I expect you to ask me, Master. I don't recall specifying people. Now, don't fret the details. Really natural to be curious, so let's make it about that. That's the last thing I wanted to talk about. Alright then. Tell me about your first crush, Master. And I have to start? I never had one. What? No, I'm not buying it. Death Battle actually had the Dante first. Are they the ones that always, like, somehow manage to get the wrong winner? Some ass backwards explanation. You were living at home until 10 years ago, weren't you? They're the ones that would pick Kong or Godzilla. Surely there was someone who caught your eye. There was not. Without missing a beat. Fine, then I'll go. My first crush was the son of a blacksmith. You missed the part where you asked what kind of guy was he. Such a... As you asked, he was a huge muscular fellow. He was so tall he would always hit his head on the doorway whenever he came to our shop to trade. You nice, beefy guys really are great, huh? They make your heart get all fluttery and tight. Are you trying to imply that I don't have a chance? Though I think that was more admiration than love. You know, the way a group of girls would get together and fawn over a popular good-looking guy, it was like that. You're saying the buff bastard was popular? Oh, very much so. Wonder what love feels like. I never got the chance to find out before ending up like this. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to get all dark on you. The whole game's been dark, alright? We're fine. Get whatever's on your mind. Don't deserve your consideration. It was my family that put you through that after all. Aw. You guys lost to Higanto, Emmy? Perhaps it was my reticence that causes her to watch her step around me. Damn. Need to come up with something to say. Yeah, sorry. These games don't exactly inspire people paying attention. It's a boring When I was 14, I'm bored at these parts for this game. It seems like every stream I start off with like 2 hours of boring shit in this game. And then somehow it gets to like an hour of decent stuff at the end. I mean, it's very odd. Odd peaks. I don't know. You asked about my first crush. I knew you had one. So tell me, what was she like? She was the daughter of a noble family. Her name was Amy, and she was a year older than me. Love between nobility, a world I can only ever imagine. It never went anywhere. What? You didn't try to woo her? You didn't shower her in presents? Were you by chance a late bloomer, Master? It was my brother's fiancée. Oh, I see. So it was a love that could never be realized. That's sad. Not really. Besides, I don't feel anything for her anymore. And what I felt then was just impulses. I guess that makes us both inexperienced. I suppose it does. Okay, I think that's enough of that. So it is. You like being here? Just yes or no. Please, just yes or no. Of course, I love it here. Being with you, being able to talk to you like this. See, that I don't understand. What? Why not? I find it difficult to believe there exists any reason speaking with me would be anything but unpleasant. No negative. Oh, hush. Say that, for example, instead of me, there was someone not so pessimistic here. You would rather be talking to them, wouldn't you? I really do enjoy this, truly. I will admit, my time down in the village was, for the most part, delightful. Oh, how should I put this? They waterboarded you with poop water? I started realizing, yeah, I'm kind of forcing myself to fit that image. I'm trying to convince myself that that's okay. But somehow when I'm here, there is none of that. I wonder why that is. I certainly wouldn't know. Suppose you wouldn't. I know, maybe I think of you as a kid now. I love talking to kids. No, don't give me that look. What I'm trying to say is, you're very sincere, Master. You're not going to smile and then stab me in the back when I turn the other way. I can relax around you, which is nice. Is this before or after we tried to stab her in the face? Because she mentions the village, so I assume this is after. I mean, I guess technically that's not stabbing her in the back. I see. You just blushed, didn't you? You're blushing, you adorable little thing. It's alright, you're allowed to fall for me. Is there any window in particular you'd like to be thrown out of? No fun at all. See what I was saying, Master? Just a short conversation. I know you better than I did before. And you, me. It's fine and well, but what do I do with that knowledge? You don't do anything with it. It's fun learning things you didn't know before. That's all there is to it. But what happens when there's nothing left to learn? I don't think will ever come. We're always changing, growing, so there's no upper limit to what you can know about them. There's always something new to discover. Maybe we'll be here for many more years, or maybe you'll be able to go home sooner than you expect. Either way, I hope we can keep getting to know each other until the end. And of course, if you're open to it, it doesn't have to end there. We can continue getting to know each other for years to come. Hey now, what are you looking away for? Because you keep throwing me off balance. A few months ago, I was doing everything in my power to avoid her, yet now that smell of hers seems so oddly enchanting. I don't understand. I will do my best so that we can make this work. So glad to hear it. Do love me some tuna salad sandwiches. Just not the ones where they mix. Some people put onions in those, and I just don't like raw onions. Giselle, I was too awkward back then. Oddly enough, you can cut up apple and throw that in there and it's fine. Even compliment you on your smile. Put my feelings into words. Those assholes that need that extra onion. Oh. Big at apple. It's much better. I was too cynical to accept what you said at face value, which I know caused you plenty of grief. I'm not much better now than I was then. But I will tell you this, when I next see you, I want more than anything to let you know how much I adore your smile, and how much I don't want to lose you, or it, ever again. Right, that was New Beginnings, and now we're on salvage. Okay. You must never reclaim your old selves. Become my loyal servants. Always at my side. There's 2 endings here, which I don't know if they're the same ending or not. I'm sorry. And curse them with me, my dears. Eternal suffering on all their souls. Okay. This is back. This is west of the doggo butt one. My consciousness, wavering like a ship at sea, is slowly drawn back to the surface. With each new breath, feeling gradually returns to my fingers. I can hear the pattering of rain from somewhere, and the sound of a crackling fire. I told my mom too, like one of the weird ones. I kept having to say pitter patter in this. And phenicistoscope, I think is the other one, right? The phenicus wheel. It takes a moment for me to realize I am at the very same spot where I first awoke. I don't know how I got here, but I'm sitting in a rocking chair, hunched forward. My head feels like someone filled it with rocks, and I'm having difficulty focusing. My joints are creaking, and I feel like I'm going to vomit. A suffocating odor hangs over the room. What is this? Giselle? Everything comes back to me all at once. That's right, I watched Morgana kidnap her. Watch the witch drag her into the darkness, and it will reach her hand. Where are you, Morgana? Why the hell did I just do that whole last scene then? I know you're there, cackling as you look down on me. Say something, witch. I will find you, and I will take her back. What on earth? There's a pool of liquid at my feet, rising just short of my ankles. It's sticky and uncomfortably warm. Every step I take makes splat noises. This is blood. The mansion has taken on a very different face from when Giselle was leading me through its halls. Blood from an unknown origin not only covers the floor, but also streams down the walls and drips from the ceiling. I'm speechless as I behold the dreadful scene. Every breath I take tastes and smells of rust. It's so unreal, beyond my comprehension. All I can do is stare, aghast, feeling like I might pass out. Giselle, are you seeing this? The same twisted nightmare as me? An image of her floating alone in a vast sea of blood flashes through my mind. That vision kicks me into motion. I promise, I will come for you. But please, just hang in there for a little longer. I begin walking, or more accurately, dragging my heavy feet forward. The constant splashing of blood against my ankles grates my already taut nerve. Morgana told me to find a way to her, and I can think of only one place she would be. She and Giselle must be there. The stained glass window is splattered with blood too. It creates trails like streams of tears running down the Archangel's face. I give the window a brief glance before making my way to the door leading to the observation tower. However, why won't it open? There shouldn't be a lock. So why? Lustrous black chains seal the metal door. I can recall no such obstruction present during either my life or the time after. What on earth is going on in this house? No, that's not important right now. What matters is making it through this door. Damn it! I pull and I push, but the chains won't give an inch. They feel sturdy enough that I probably couldn't cut through them either. There has to be some way. I consider giving up here and scouring the rest of the house. I'm convinced the tower is my best chance. The fact that it's sealed now when it hadn't been before feels like a challenge more than a deterrent. I trace the length of chain with my hand, and at the end of it I find a peculiar looking lock in which the ends of several chains have been fed. There are 3 keyholes? Morgana fashioned a custom lock just for this. I need to find 3 keys to open the door, and then I have no idea where to begin my search. I lived here for more than 10 years, and yet it feels like I've stepped into a strange land. No, it's not the same house. Searching blindly is only going to waste time. The longer I take, the more danger she's in. I met someone before who had a key. It was before I had reclaimed myself. I was exploring the mansion alone. Think, Michael, who was it? The painting. Oh, I forgot it's supposed to be Michelle, not Michael. Like everything else in the house, the painting is covered in blood. That depicts a serene rural landscape, only makes the contrast that much grimmer. I remember talking to this painting, assuming it wasn't a hallucination. I have a question for you. Are you awake? Please wake up. Oh, it actually did. Oh. Ah. Can you hear my voice? Please say something. You reside here in the house like the witch, don't you? You've been here with her all this time, haven't you? Then you must know how to get into the observation tower. About the 3 keys I need to open the lock. I need to get into the tower. Please, tell me where I can find the keys. Say something, damn it. Answer my question. Ah. Is someone there? What's the matter? I feel kind of strange. Did the witch do something to me? Please get a hold of yourself. Everything's all red. I can't stand it. I don't remember using that color. I reach my hand up to try to wipe as much blood off the canvas as possible. I can't even smear it with my sleeve, let alone get it off. You're wasting your time. But it's a thought that counts. Anyway, you have had a question for me. Go on, I'm listening. I guess the painting isn't on the witch's side then? The door to the observation tower has been locked. I need to gather 3 keys, I think. That's my assumption since the lock has 3 keyholes. Do you know of any such keys? And if so, could you tell me where they might be? Keys? I'm getting flashbacks to the key. StarCraft 1. Please, stay with me. You're the only one I can ask for help. It's a zergling rush. I'm guessing this is probably in some way connected to her past. Her past, you know, the events the witch is always cursing about. What happened between her and those 3 men? What happened between them? These are probably with the 3 of them. The 3 shadows. You must have seen them. 3 men. Shadows. Find them. And you'll probably find the keys, too. But watch yourself. They aren't likely to trust you easily. The depths of their sins grow greater the farther you go. Visit them in order. In order. The first one probably won't be a problem. So, tell me something. You're Michelle, aren't you? What? I want to apologize to you for so long. Wait, what do you mean? Did you know me? Did you? What are you apologizing for? Tell me, please. Could you be... Why? How? When everything else is finished, I'm going to need to visit this painting again, but now I have other things to do. The painting gave me a hint about where I could find the keys. I don't know anything about the past Morgana has with the 3 men. I never asked her about herself, after all, so maybe I'm going to end up having to do more than simply take Giselle back. Has our involvement with the witch caused us to be swept up into her twisted maelstrom of fate? Regardless, I need to get to work. She said to visit them in order. I assume she was referring to the order I entered the 3 doors. Alright, so this is where I gotta fail these things. Salvage, okay. I descend the stairs, opening the cellar door. The first time I visited this room, the smell of blood from within was nearly suffocating. Now the entire house reeks of it. I'm starting to go numb to the odor. There's no one here. Am I in the wrong place? I began exploring the cellar, hoping to maybe find the key hidden away or abandoned somewhere. Don't be sorry. I think it's funny. As I reach my hand out to investigate one area, A shadow leaps out in thick darkness. I have no idea what just happened. The world suddenly swung backwards, and now I'm losing my grip on consciousness. Sound of flowing water. What my body doing over there? What's going on? Sal, I know I'm supposed to come for you. I can't make my body move. Is this the end? I wish I could have, even just once more. Hello, Michelle? Ah, yes. Oh, good, you're back. What's gotten into you? I was gone? Sure, weren't here. I do. I was starting to think you were ignoring me. You were saying something? Oh, I knew it. You weren't listening. Sorry. If you wouldn't mind, could you say it again? You really want me to. Awkward enough saying it once, though. Awkward? Yeah, you know, we're a couple now, right? We are, yes. Not that it feels any different. We should do something couples do. What? Come on. You look like I just told you the sky was pink. I don't know what couples do. It could be anything. Want to do something we couldn't do before. Doesn't help. She's gonna hold her hand. I still don't know what couples actually do. Would a normal man know? No idea what she wants. I wasn't trying to stump you. Oh no, if nothing comes to mind, then we don't have to. Forget I said anything. I'm gonna look awful if I don't come up with something. Hands. Holy shit. What? Oh, no. I just thought maybe holding hands might be something that really is hand holding. Yes, I like that. Let's hold hands. I'm so sorry to show this to you guys. I didn't know it was smut. Alright, I'm ready. Give me your hand. This is a handshake. Why would you take my hand like that? Nothing about this says we're a couple. I know what I'm supposed to do. Not shake my hand for one. What do you expect? This is all new to me. All new to me. Oh, you're so silly. Alright, fine. We can take it slowly then. Plenty of time after all. I didn't know it was going to be this lewd. Ending 0. Dead end. Alright, I might have botched this. I might have to do it. We might have to die again. Sorry, guys. Go to the den. Yes. Okay, this is another dead end. I can hardly believe my eyes when I step into the den. In the middle of the room is a large rectangular table. 4 balls roll across. We did this already. Giselle. The question of why she's here never crosses my mind. All I feel is elation is here once more. There's no room for anything else in my head. Run over her, put my hand on her shoulder. Thank goodness you're all alright. And turn her towards me. You know what? Giselle? I shake her, causing her head to droop lifelessly. No trace of light in her unmoving eyes. Why, Giselle? Why? Say something, Giselle. Say anything, please. This can't be. You can't be. My mind goes blank. I can't catch my breath. The world is hazy. And why is Giselle... Why did I have to find her like this? Mind you, I did tell you this was going to be a little bit of a spooky read, okay? I can't be blamed for giving doggos bad dreams. Why? I swore I would do anything. I swore I would never lose you again. Talk to me, Giselle. Say something, please. I want to see your smile once more. What? It happened in an instant. Too quickly for me to make any sense of it. Wait, did we get shot too? There we go. By the time I recognize the smell of gunpowder, everything's already fading to black. Now, I'm looking at the floor. I don't have the strength to lift my head. I don't have time to wonder what happened to me, or why I can't stand before the last thread of my consciousness snaps. Michelle. My goodness, Ursurum's master certainly knows how to make a mess. For someone who can barely shape his soul into something resembling human, he has no respect for others. Such an appalling man. Oh, I feel so awful for you, my darling, devoted Giselle. I have to witness the death of your beloved not once, but twice. How did this happen? Michelle, say something, please. You came to find me, didn't you? So get up, please. You're wasting your breath, my dear. His fate has been sealed. Only eradication awaits him. I don't have to tell you why, do I? It's not just his body that was destroyed. He will never come back to you. For all eternity. Why? Why does it have to happen to him? Direct your anger at me, my dear. I'm not the one who did this. Well, I did tear you apart. I did not kill him. His death was not my intention. Look at this, Giselle, and tell me. You don't feel hatred? You don't want to curse the one responsible. You do, don't you? You want to join me in cursing the man who did this to your beloved, and everyone connected to him. Will you let him get away with it? I would never let him get away with this. I didn't think so. He will pay. All the torment in the world isn't enough. He must pay. That's his spirit, my darling Giselle. I'm here for you, to inflict as much suffering on them as you desire, in whatever fashion you wish. Eternal suffering on all their souls. Like a fun time. I know, Michelle, that this won't accomplish anything, but I'm not strong enough to choose another path. And now that I remember everything, all the time I waited for you, all the love I felt for you, my life as Giselle, too much for me to bear without the protection of my coconut. I can't cope with it any other way than turn it into my hatred. How am I supposed to keep myself sane, having lost you twice now? I just don't know. Both of you say N0. I don't know. Yeah, that's fine. Hate doing this shit. We really do. Let's see how many endings I have done on this. Do these not count? And why do I have to do them? Weird. I might have to do the doggo one because it's supposed to be a timed choice, which I never saw any timed choice. Alright. Now we're going Rose Garden? Yes. I make my way to the Rose Garden. The corridor leading there is a mess, and the wooden door is rotting away. I can smell the flowers on the other side. Everything is different from when I was alive. From when Giselle planted and raised that single rose. A scene from the past spreads out before me. The field of once proudly flourishing roses is now withered and gray. Knowing how beautiful it had once been only makes that much more dispiriting. A bitter breeze brushes past me. Solitude hangs over the garden like a thick fog eating away at me. This isn't what I wanted. Oh, I didn't say that. Someone, get me out of here. Oh, God. Tell me that I'm not the bad one here. A young man's shadow stands off to the side, muttering listlessly to himself. I recognize his voice. Do you have the key? The boy and I have never met, but I feel like I know him quite well. We've been acquainted for many years. I know how polite and mild-mannered he is. I know how kind and how vulnerable, how human his heart is. However, very little of that boy seems to remain. This isn't what I wanted. Oh God, please answer me. Someone, get me out of here. Tell me that I'm not the bad one. Answer me, Melrose. I know it's you. Huh? As soon as I say the shadow's name, it turns to face me. I still can't make out not much detail. They seem slightly less tenuous now. Who are you? Do you know my name? My name is Michelle. I once lived here in this mansion. Michelle. I know that name. I know it very well. Something's not right. You look different from the Michelle I remember. I'm not the Michelle you know. Our names simply sound the same. Oh, that makes sense. You would never come to see me. I have a question for you. Do you have the key to the observation tower? I do. Would you please give it to me? I need to get to the tower. And what do you need there? There's someone there I need to find. That's all? It may not sound like much to you, but it means a great deal to me. You're not one of her prisoners, then? No. I came here of my own free will. To find this person? Exactly. Then maybe you can help me. Help you how? Set me free. Convince her to release me from this place. I'm begging you. The anguish emanating from the boy's shadow is so thick it causes me to recoil. There's a thread of dark desperation in his voice. Has he been imprisoned here for hundreds of years like Giselle? Promise me. You'll get me out of here. Am I even equipped to judge whether that would be a good decision or not? All I know of him is his time in the mansion during the Era of Roses. I know nothing else of his life. I don't even know if I would be capable of keeping such a promise. Do I have the strength to save anyone other than her? Do you absolutely need the key? You won't agree to help me without it, will you? What? I dropped it. Over there. The boys point to a thick bramble of roses. Despite the flowers themselves being wilted, the thorns are still sharp. It was an accident, I swear. I didn't want to scratch my arm, so I left it there. Not my fault there are so many thorns. I really want to hit this boy. Why? Why couldn't you have just said so? Because I thought if I didn't have the key that you wouldn't help me. There's only so much I can do, regardless of whether you have the key. I cannot promise you anything, nor can I be the judge of you. Let's see. I do not have enough information to make such a decision. Key promises and superficial kindness will only serve to destroy the both of us. Now, excuse me, I'm going to go retrieve the key. What? You'll never get out of the thorns. I don't care what's the bottom of the ocean, I will have that key. You're wasting your time. I approach the bramble, reaching out for it with my right hand. From behind me, I can sense the boy watching. First, I attempt to spread the tangled, thorn-ridden stems so I can put my arm in without injuring myself. But they seem to be made of iron rather than plant, and my efforts prove mostly fruitless. The only opening is barely large enough to fit an arm in and resembles the toothy mouth of a beast. Look around the garden. I can't find anything that looks remotely useful. I guess my only option is to reach in. That's not going to stop me. I lean down and insert my right arm into the thorny cavern. Immediately, they begin ripping at my sleeve and gashing at my flesh. Blood spills down my arm. I'm long since dead, no longer human, but the pain is still agonizing, still very much real. Zell doesn't bleed. She doesn't feel pain. Am I not the same as her, then? That doesn't matter right now. Focus on getting that damn key. Streams of crimson spread through the steel-like tangle, gnawing at my arm like a ravenous animal. Where the hell is the key? The thorny stems are twisted and layered so thick that I can't see inside at all. As I dig around blindly, I start losing feeling in my arm. It's an endless deluge of pain. Hey, cut it out. You're going to lose your arm. I will not stop until I have the key. Don't ask me for help. I wasn't even considering it. I collect what remains of my gradually fading sensation and focus it into my fingers, praying even one of them will brush against the key. Damn it. As much as I search, as much as I dig, I find nothing so much as resembling a key. It means it must be deeper than I can reach my arm. Even so, I cannot give up. Hey, please be quiet right now. I need to focus. Sorry, I do have the key, actually. Alright. I'm gonna take a quick break and we're gonna find out how we're gonna beat this kid's ass. I gotta be careful with these saves. I'll be back. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. All right, we're ready again. Into this coffee made. So yeah. Ooh, who'd you guys kill? Oh, Algus. I think he's always worth a ton. Alright, let's see. You what?
Just sit here and let me beat the crap out of you.
I'm so sorry. It didn't look like you were all willing to help even if I gave it to you, so... Plus, you told me not to give it to anyone for any reason. Hold still so I can beat you. I didn't mean you any ill will. You most certainly did. Hey, I'll give you the keys. Please have mercy. Trembling in fear, the boy's shadow sticks around out of hand, holding the key. My phone is being annoying. The arm I used to dig through the thorns is so bloody and gashed I can barely look at it, but it does still function. And so I take the key from him with my right hand. I like a call from both my mom and dad. I mean, at least I can get calls from them, you know? Many people can't, so. Just don't they understand? I have makeup on, okay? I can't talk to people when I have hair makeup and hair putty dyeing stuff. Why couldn't you use your other hand? That's gross. That's the idea. You're kind of a jerk, you know. That's a laugh coming from you. Do you have any idea how much that hurt? I know. I'm sorry, really. But hey, you're alive, so no big deal, right? Wait, can you actually say either of us are alive? I don't even know anymore. I do appreciate you giving me the key, though. Seeing as it seemed to be rather important to you, too. Hey, is this person you want to get back really worth going through all this for? She is. She's the only person who ever loved me, and she's waiting for me. I see. You know, I had someone that meant a lot to me, too. My sister. Which one? Which one? The one with the flaxen hair, like me. If you happen to see her, do something nice for her, please. We'll get her a wig. That, I would say, is your responsibility. Yeah, you're right. But I'll keep it in mind. Thanks. And until I witnessed the boy push his sister away, for an understandable reason, admittedly. But now it seems he bears no grudge for her. Anything else happened between them? If it did, I don't have time to ask about it. I'll be on my way. Alright, take care. But wait, here's my 15 stories. There are 2 more keys. Watch out, though. They're not the most friendly people. And they'll probably be even more enraged locked up like this. I appreciate the warning. If only someone like you had shown up sooner and taken the keys from us. Goodbye. After bidding me farewell, the boy's phantom dissipates into the shadows of the rose garden. I wonder if he's back to mindlessly muttering his regrets. I should get going. So just so you know, there is a... like, I will do the wrong way again here. And this should be another ending. But I don't know if it's the same one that I just did, if that makes sense. Got that ending. Okay, we're going down to the cellars. Which I think we just did. Yeah. My body freezes in place. A shadow stands before me, holding the tip of a blade mere inches from my face. A key. You have a key. I do, yes. Cold sweat trickles down my back. My voice is shaking and there's no hiding it. The shade appears to be glaring at me, though I cannot make out its face. After a few seconds, it withdraws its blade. Let me see it. The boy's key. Did he give it to you? In the rose garden, yes. Are you 2 acquaintances? How could that be, though? You were from a completely different era and country. Who are you? No, never mind. Who you are is irrelevant to me. Are you a human now? If you're speaking of my nature, then no, is the only answer I can give you. You didn't kill me, though. If you wanted to, you could easily have skewered me where I stood. If that's what you want, I'd be happy to oblige. What did you come here for? For your key. I came to ask you if you would give it to me. You mean to open that door? You need to get into the tower, yes. I see. Take it. The man shadowed tosses the key at my feet. I'm not quite sure what to think. I didn't expect him to give it up so readily. What? Take it. I won't stab you in the back while you're bending over. You're supposed to hold on to it at all costs. I no longer have any reason to guard that key. In the past, I might have severed your head from your shoulders the moment you mentioned it, though. What point in the past? That's a question I wish I knew the answer to. Hey, do you know why I'm here? Where this place is, when it is, why I can't get out of here, what's happened to me? Tell me. I have no idea what's going on. Not a single goddamn idea. Neither do I. Get out. Take the key and get out of here. Get out! I can't bring myself to say anything to the enraged shadow, so I follow his command, picking up the key and departing the cellar. Not good. I thought I was dead for a second. Thanks too, though. What could have happened between these people? The painter mentioned a past with them. Morgana spoke of the wicked men she cursed. Does it mean they actually did something awful enough to earn Morgana's spite? Right now, though, I must push onward. Right after the answer, make a quick... If I'm not mistaken, the final key should be in that room. Room with the billiards table. What is billiards anyway? I should get moving. When did billiards get invented? Once I have this key, I can get into the observation tower. I'm almost certain Morgana is waiting for me there, with Giselle. But I gather my resolve and hurry to the last room, not wanting to take even a second longer than necessary getting her back. I can hardly believe my eyes when I step into the den. In the middle of the room is a large rectangular table. Several balls roll across its surface. It's her, Giselle. The question of why she's here never crosses my mind. All I feel is elation to see her once more. You know that. And turn her towards me. Yeah. Giselle. I shake her. Yeah. I said this already before. Why, Giselle? Why? Say something, Giselle. Say anything, please. This can't be. You can't be. My mind goes blank. I can't catch my breath. The world is hazy. Giselle, to find her like this. I swear I would do anything. Or I'd never lose you again. Thought crosses my dazed, despair-wrought mind. Probably nothing more than vain hope, but... a drop of blood spilled from my breast. That's right, she doesn't bleed. This can't be her. This isn't her. Or maybe Morgana has the power to alter Giselle's very nature. Or with a flick of the wrist. Now I even want to think about it. There's no hope to be found down that path. All I can do is pray. Beg for her to still be alive. Or, if alive isn't the right word, herself. My prayers bring me back to reality, which is when I realize there's something hard pressed against the back of my head. I hear a harsh metallic clink. What? A piercing bang rips through the air as I drop to the hard floor. My ears are ringing painfully. Through the cloud of smoke and confusion, I see a man's silhouette. Humph. Missed. It takes several moments for me to recognize the object in hand as a gun. Not because it's draped in a shadow, but because I've never seen one with my own eyes. Had I not witnessed what they were capable of through the stories, I would not have understood how terrifying they were. Not a problem, though. I'll finish you with the next one. Now you hold still, boy. Start running around like a rat, and I can't guarantee you a painless death. Wait, hold on a second. Why are you trying to kill me? Because you make too much goddamn noise, that's why. Don't tell me you're the one who... What? I turn my gaze towards the large table. Giselle isn't there. This has been an illusion after all. The realization sends a wave of relief through me. I still have a gun in my face, though. Curious man you are. Does the table warrant your attention more than me? I have a request. Could you give me the key in your possession? It's all I need, and then I'll leave and stop making a racket. I think Ildon. Did Trance say they were Ildon? It doesn't really matter. I have no idea how much further there is in the game. I have Chapter 7 and the final chapter. And there's like 10 sub-chapters, which vary between an hour and 3 minutes. So, I don't know. This game's supposed to be about 30 hours. Well, 30 to 35. And I'm reading out loud, so it's a little slower than what you can read in your head. I'm not sure you understand your predicament, boy. Because if you think you're in any position to be asking favors, you're dumber than you look. First off, I don't even know what key you're talking about. I don't believe that. The other two had keys. You're telling me they gave you their keys? They really do know each other. See for yourself. I believe you should recognize these. Are you collecting them to enter the tower? Are you going to see Morgana? There seems to be a hint of tension in the man's voice. While I can see it in his face, I sense the waves forming within him. I brace myself for either rejection or a hot lead. But the apparition gives me neither. Take me with you. What? You have the other two keys, don't you? Yeah, I'm indifferent so far. There's a lot of repetition in this game. That could easily have been edited out, like a lot. And you can open the door. Bring me to the witch. Wait, slow down. And I understand how it is somewhat more impactful to see every single event again through everyone else's eyes. But not that much. Like, come on. What do you plan to do when you see her? What do you think? She has to... He's gone. He has to what? What is he trying to say? I got the third key. Right after the answer, make a quick... I'm right at that one, and then I get a dead one. The floor where the shade stood is a new key. Curious though I am about his last words. This makes 3. I have all the keys now. Is it true ending things?
Puff, puff.
You know, I've played games where they had the true ending, you just have to beat an extra dungeon. Are you trying to rile me up, Morgana? You're enjoying yourself up there, showing me these phantoms and watching me squirm? Just you wait, I'm on my way. I give the room a brief once-over before making my way back up to the chapel. I just don't want to fuck it up as I'm going, which it isn't. There's only like a couple choices in this game, but as you saw, they kind of matter. These fit perfectly in the openings on the lock, and when I insert the last one, it clicks open. A lot of them have been word for word, which annoys me. The chains sealing the door falling to the floor. Like one of them, I mean, I think the biggest thing is more or less changing the white-haired girl with the maid, Giselle, and redoing those scenes. I'm like, come on, all you did was change the girl's hair. Giselle was much better than the white-haired girl, but... They're waiting beyond this door, at the top of the stairs. A good example of how much kind of. I mean, those ones were extra dungeons you had to beat at the end of 3, 4, and 5, I believe. Start pondering what I can even do in a face-off against Morgana, which sends a nervous shudder down my spine. I'm not going to back down regardless, but she is a witch, and I'm a mere human, formerly human. I don't think you at any point had to switch out, we'll say Teddy from 4 with a different Teddy, and redo all of his things every single time. I'm not a master swordsman, nor do I wield a gun. I have nothing at all with which to fight her. I still have to confront the witch, though, no matter what. Yeah, the repetition is what was annoying. As laughably reckless, as foolish as I may be, I have no other option. If I had to redo every single dungeon, which there is a, what, Bravely Default is the big one for that, having to redo things again and again and again, you can kiss my ass. I will not ever beat that game. I placed my hand on the door, preparing to climb the tower where I once spent my last breath. Giselle locked safely away in the chamber at the top. The tower where I first met the witch. When they ended the game in that's when it ends, okay? It's not my fault they decided to redo it again and again. No hesitation. The sound of blood streaming down the stairs echoes off the stone walls. Although I have begun growing numb to the house's otherworldly ornamentation, the sight of seemingly endless river of blood flowing down the spiral staircase sends a chill through me. Every step I climb makes a splat, splat noise. When I reach a window, I look out to see a churning reddish black fog. This brings me back. You climbing these stairs alone, just like old times? Anna. I waited so long for someone like you to show up. Someone with enough to spare to resurrect me. Back. But now, I don't see it in you. I think the annoying one was actually Tiscaya. It has a couple different endings, and the one is a little difficult to get, and it's you can't kill any of your own allies. And you pretty much get the ending. But now, I don't see it in you. I don't feel one bit of that intense hopelessness anymore. Give her back. And here I had thought we were cut from the same cloth. Morgana! Yes, I'll give her back. You can make it to me without losing yourself. I will not give up. It doesn't matter what you do. Looking up, I can't see how far the stairs extend. It's just a gaping blackness, so I have no way of knowing for sure whether I'm getting any closer. Around and around and around and around. Beneath me, the blood river traces the same path in reverse. I start to wonder if the staircase even does end. I'm not just eternally retracing my own steps. I continue climbing regardless. It's all I can do, put one foot in front of the other, and hope I make it to the top. Morgana, what is this? What do you do to it? What is it? Why, it's the mansion you lived in for a decade, of course. You look at this and tell me it's the same house? What's with the blood everywhere? And the three shadows? Oh now, my dear, no need to raise your voice. You're being impolite, one question at a time. Answer me! What is this place? That's immaterial. Solid 5. Is that Metal Gear no solids? Even if I were to give you an answer you found satisfying, what would that knowledge do for you? And I mean, if you pick any game by him, Kojima's special, okay? Your objective is to reach the top of these stairs and rescue Giselle. Nothing more, nothing less, isn't that right? I can think of very few people who really praise the non-convolutedness of the Metal Gear Solid line of story. Or by chance, have you taken interest in me? Well, it's just we don't understand it as well as being Westerners, you know? Despite never once asking me about myself before, my gut tells me that without knowing what this place is, without even the briefest glimpse of its nature, I won't be able to safely get her back, without knowing what I'm up against. I don't stand a chance. Please tell me about this mansion, Morgana. About yourself. What are you, Morgana? A witch. No, that's not what I'm asking. Why do you have the powers you do? What are you? Yes, I get it. Humans feel the need to attach names to things and phenomena they don't understand. I understand that feeling very well, which is why I'm sure you'll be rather disappointed when I reveal the truth. Let's do it! What I mean is, I'm an ordinary human. That's not possible. Vetus, are you not in 5th anymore? What happened? You broke 9 million. Ghost, you're almost up to 12. You expect me to believe a human created this illusion? And are you saying I'm a magician or a wizard like you might see in a fairy tale? Oh, you're the witch. I would believe that over you being human. Think back then, would you? Recall our time together. Oh, well, get your shit together. Did I ever once use magic? Did I control fire or wind? Did I create illusions? No, I did none of that. Because I could not. You, when you were alive, I suppose you could say, I was not but a simple ghost. A rather mischievous, but otherwise powerless spirit. And I was nothing more to those three men either. But she sealed the door. The witch Morgana was never anything but a wretched phantom haunting this old house. Then how do you explain this? Michelle, my dear, we're not the same beings we once were. We're different than when we were in the realm of light, the air of the living. You figured that much out, though, haven't you? That you're already dead. Yes, I know. I know I couldn't possibly be alive, yet still you view this world through the lens of the living. You make no effort to see it as the land of the dead. Tell me, why would you think that the realm of the living and dead are the same? Though the worlds behind each door were so vibrant, the mansion itself never had any color. They were the memories of the past, of the land of the living, of times forever lost to us. Our lives have already come to an end, my dear. Every last soul within these walls is dead. This is the world that lies beyond the end. It is my world. This is the afterlife. Why get caught up in the minutiae? None of us has a future. But what reason is there for you to desperately obsess over taking Giselle back? Like you, she's long since dead. She's a walking corpse. Not that I didn't already know, but hearing her say it is like a kick to the gut. If we had any guts, dead or alive, she still lives within this house, and my spirit found its way back too. Why then should I not wish for her to have a future, no matter what form it may take, no matter if my choices erase her from this world entirely? Having seen what lies beyond the door is in her heart, what happened in all those hundreds of years, I can never let her remain here with you, trapped in this world bereft of light, drifting aimlessly for all eternity. So determined you feel the need to raise your voice, you're not going to budge on that point, I see. I ask you this again, Morgana. Please tell me about yourself. How did you become a witch? How did you end up attached to this house? I want to hear your story. You honestly want to know about me? I do now, yes. This is almost Castlevania moment, and I have to ask her a third time. But not for me, for her, right? Don't be shy now. It's the truth, isn't it? Besides, if you did say it was for me, not her, I might die of laughter. As you wish. I've seen many tales of people's lives since arriving here, and now you shall see mine. So I ask you this. Will you writhe in despair with me? Will you endure maddening agony for me? Will you know the pain enough to make you howl? Will you face despair again and again and again? As I said before, if that is what you want from me, let me tell you something though, my dear. It will not be as easy to watch as you imagine. Now that you've reclaimed yourself, you'll be able to feel all my pain as if it were your own, to resonate with it. You no longer have your little guardian with you either. Always protect. You'll have a wonderful time, I'm sure. It's a tale that could have only taken place in the era of miracles and spirituality. Wondrous and weird, senseless and stupid, hopelessly tragic. Will you watch it with me? Oh. Yes! As soon as the final word leaves her mouth, I'm engulfed in darkness, not even given a moment to brace myself. The tower stairs crumble beneath me. My feet have nowhere to go. As I'm being battered by the roaring, blooded river, my consciousness melds with another. My left eye is starting to twitch. Usually not a great sign. I carry within me the child of God. This is where it all began. I have no clue where I'm supposed to be going in this. The words of a foolish woman determined the course of my entire life. Before I was even born, my fate was decided. Did her claim come from faith? Was it her way of escaping reality, or did she do it for money or fame? I don't know. I've been visited by an angel of the Lord. The village where she lived had suffered from years of poor harvest. It had been months since the last rain, and all the villagers prayed desperately to be blessed with succor. I am with child, though I have known no man. So proclaimed the pregnant woman in the midst of the drought. And on the day of my birth, the very moment I let out my first cry, a heavy rain fell down upon the village. The storm quenched the parched earth, nourishing the crops and saving the village. The villagers were astounded. They had thought the drought would never end. As pumped drops of rain poured down upon the village, they gathered around newborn with exultation. She is a child of God. Perhaps there would be more wonder in claiming I had magical powers. Perhaps it would make a better story if it were to say there were higher forces involved. All these years later, here is what I truly think. Nothing more than a fluke. Improbable stroke of luck. Unbelievable fortunate accident for my mother and the village, and an indescribably unfortunate accident for myself. I'm with child, though I have known no man. As if that's even possible. Maybe she had fooled around with a man who had gone and abandoned her. And she spouted those lies to convince herself it had never happened. None of the village men made any claim to be my father. Perhaps he was someone else's husband, and as such he couldn't reveal himself, as adultery is a sin in the eyes of God. The girl they were praising as a child of God was, indeed, not more than an ordinary daughter of a wretched woman. At the time, though, I thought differently. I believed my mother's words, convinced I was a saint, and it gave me a sense of duty, of purpose, rather than superiority. As the daughter of God, I believed it was my responsibility to help anyone in need. So every day I prayed. Hold on. Hold. Holy One. I think this is just a repeat, so maybe I did do it correctly? We're almost to chapter 7, which still is not the end of... Every day I prayed. I asked my father what I could do, what I was meant to do. Not everyone is equally good, however. There will always be someone who lends their ear to the devil's whispers. One man claimed I was the daughter of a charlatan. He shouted for all to hear, "Here we are, the child of God, then perform a miracle for us." Could he have been any more unreasonable? Miracles are neither magic nor power tricks. They are realized through the power of faith. The lowly villager has no place demanding God to prove his own divinity. It is the height of arrogance. But the man refused to heed my words. So, having no other choice, I contemplated what I could do to show him that I was indeed a saint. And blood was the spark of my inspiration. Michelle, the time when I lived and the time when you lived were not so different. Our views and beliefs about the world are very much the same. You should understand that in our time, blood was seen as unclean. It was a dreadful thing, ridden with diseases, which is why we drained the blood from animals and purified the flesh before consuming it. But being a saint, my blood would have been different. Like the blood of saints who came before me, mine would be blessed. I believed it would be able to cleanse people's impurities. For my demonstration, I chose an elderly woman afflicted with a terrible disease. She was on her deathbed, and no one thought she would live longer than a day or two. The woman was overjoyed when I came to visit her, sincerely believing me to be a holy servant of the Lord. She gathered all the strength she could muster to climb from her bed and kiss my feet. I felt an intensely deep love for this woman. Placing my hands above her cheeks, I said, "Of all the kindness in my heart, my beloved sister, partake of my blood." The woman agreed without a glimpse of hesitation. So I pricked the tip of my finger with a knife and let the blood drip into her mouth. Within 3 days, her health had improved enough for her to get out of bed unassisted. Seeing that, no one in the village doubted my powers any longer. In fact, the man who had accused me of being the daughter of a charlatan was subsequently punished for his sins. He much deserved retribution for challenging the daughter of God, for mocking her. Of course, being a saint, I forgave the man. He in turn repented and changed his ways, worshipping me as a true child of God. I'll be honest with you, I was ecstatic, utterly elated. It felt like I was on top of the world, and I reveled in it. The villagers showered me with adulation. They revered me, the daughter of God. Anyone who didn't was punished. On top of that, my blood could cause miracles. Tell me, you look down on me for feeling the way I did? An actual child of God would never let herself be consumed by such base emotion, would she? If you give me a chance, I would like to explain myself. I was but a young girl at the time, and to a child her mother is the world. Anything she says is the absolute truth, so when my mother's claims so happened to coincide with a lucky miracle, my young mind was set in stone. I was a saint. My blood could heal the sick, and nothing could convince me otherwise. After all, I was but a girl of 6 years old. It is not my place to decide whether my blood truly had miraculous powers or not. If you think it did, then it did. And if you think it was all happenstance, then so it was. Miracles are brought about by faith. So the elderly woman who was healed was done so by the power of her own belief. Okay, so this is going right into Xenogears. We got this. Baseless hope and desire can at times make the otherwise impossible reality. You understand just how major a role religion played in our time, don't you, Michelle? Especially as someone whose life was taken from him in the name of God. And you understand how powerful word of mouth can be as well, don't you? It didn't take long for word of the miracle-performing child of God to spread. Travelers from faraway lands came to our village, all in search of aid. Driven by a mixture of elation and duty, I gave my blessings onto every pilgrim who sought them. I gave them my blood, yes. Oh Christ, fucking typhoid Murray here. My young hands were perpetually covered in wounds. Running out of skin on my fingers, I cut the back of my hands, my palms, my wrists. Before long, they turned to swollen, carved-up black and red horrors. So I kept them wrapped up in cloth at all times. The only time I uncovered them was to give blood to those who sought it. My lacerated hands were in no uncertain terms gruesome and unsightly, but the believers who came to see me all wept at my selfless sacrifice. And so I came to cherish those wounds. There were some for whom no miracle took place, but whenever that would happen, the villagers would come out and say, "The daughter of God is not to blame, you simply lack sufficient faith." Thus, such incidents had no negative effect on my reputation as a saint. For 3 years, I continued doling out blessings.
Do you have a problem with my nippleless chest?
One day, while I was offering a prayer, my mother would slip her discontent. "Why must you hand out miracles for nothing? Why must you give strangers grace? We should be getting compensated. We deserve remunerations. If we charged just a little bit for each blessing, we could be living so much more comfortably." I was dumbfounded. How could the mother of a saint say such things? Helping people was my divine calling, and she expected payment? I was promised Neverland. I actually never ended up watching that. I nearly wept hearing my mother preoccupied with such worldly desires. I've been on like a violent streak for animus. Watching violence, not causing it myself. So I explained to her how important this work was. I taught her that we were not to covet material wealth, that we were to dedicate our lives to the service of our fellow man. "You're right, my dear saint," she said, understanding. And I believed her. I fell asleep that night convinced she truly understood and that there were to be no more problems. But the next day, I was sold off. Men I had never seen before carried me by the arms and tossed me into a carriage. Confused and panicked, I stuck my head out, searching for my mother. Off in the shadow of the house, I saw her with a strange man, except in a bag of coins. The carriage rocked back and forth, as it rolled along a dirt road, shaking and bouncing within. I struggled with overwhelming grief and despair. It was, perhaps, the first time in my life I had felt such a powerful emotion. I didn't know what I felt so much despair over, though. Obviously, it wasn't over my present predicament. I wasn't sure what about it hurt the most. Was it that I had been pawned off like a slave? Was it that my mother, the mother of a saint, had been blinded by money? Was it that the villagers had watched in silence as a disciple of the Lord was thrown into a carriage? Or was it that I, daughter of God, lamented my misfortune like a mortal? I decided it was a trial. My father, the Lord God, was testing my worthiness of being his daughter, so I choked back my urge to cry and sat there in silent contemplation. For almost 3 weeks was I rocked around in the carriage. The coachman treated me well enough, but I'm certain it was only because he didn't want his precious cargo dying before he could deliver it. He did not by any means think me the child of God. The 3rd week the carriage arrived at a city, much larger than the village I had grown up in, with many, many more people crowding the streets. Something about them felt different, too. They all spoke in a tongue foreign to mine, which is when I realized I was far, far away from home. I was delivered to the lavishly decorated mansion of the region's lord. Brightly colored flowers bloomed wildly in the garden as guests laughed and ate extravagant meal. In addition to them, there were probably 4 times as many slaves moving about the grounds, getting a range of looks from everyone we passed, from smartly dressed men to scrawny, emaciated servants. was led to the Lord's chambers. The Lord was surrounded by beautiful women. Perhaps they were slaves, or perhaps they were prostitutes. We couldn't tell. Among them were some girls hardly older than me. They all wore thin swaths of cloth, barely covering themselves at all. The Lord looked me up and down, and with a laugh he said, "Welcome, daughter of God. You'll be performing miracles for me now." "Miracles are not something to be performed for one single person's benefit," I replied, shocked and furious he had just said something so utterly blasphemous. In response he said, "I bought you. You are my property. You have no right to an opinion." But I would not have any of it. I entreated him to give up his indulgent lifestyle and devote himself to the service of the Lord. The more I pleaded, the deeper the creases of his face grew. Thinking back on it now, it was hardly surprising. A 9-year-old girl was still the most powerful man in the region. I believed it was my duty, and that I was only doing what was right, but he surely saw it as incredible arrogance. The Lord forced his will upon me. He bound my hands and feet and cut me without permission, filling a goblet with my blood and passing it around to his guests. A saint's blood and good fortune to all. That was when I realized the Lord was only interested in the approval of others. He reveled in their envy as he pranced about, showing off his curious new toy, me. He didn't need my miracles. Neither he nor any of the guests were afflicted with disease or misfortune. They were all richly blessed. Every time he threw a banquet, he drained me of my blood. It became nearly impossible to find a spot on either my arms that wasn't swollen, reddish-black gash, and soon, because my arms weren't providing enough blood for him, the cutting spread to my legs. I lived in a haze of half-consciousness. Honestly, I'm amazed it didn't kill me, but perhaps the Lord was simply taking care not to take more than my body could spare. Watching the wealthy partygoers laugh and sip my blood through bleary eyes, another wave of despair came over me. My miracles, my blood, were not meant to be an appetizer at a feast. They were meant for the sick and the poor. But despite my wishes, the Lord persisted to squeeze me dry day in and day out for his own enjoyment. For a while I was convinced it was all God's test. It was part of his plan for me, his daughter. If I could make it through this trial, I could be allowed to go back to helping people. That man would celebrate my success, envy me, worship me. That sinners would face punishment. That divine retribution would be delivered unto all who had wronged me. Saint. With each passing day, my spirit grew more twisted. Would anyone have believed that scarred and bloody girl tied up on the floor in the banquet hall was a saint? Unlikely. This was no charitable gathering, but an unholy Sabbath. Perhaps it was caused by my corrupted spirit. Perhaps it was my heart's way of crying for help. Perhaps it was the devil giving me my witch's mark. But no matter what the cause, during one of the bloody banquets, I underwent a transformation. I was half conscious as usual when one of the guests pointed at me and shouted something. His face went pale as if he were afraid, which I found quite curious. The Lord then approached me, grabbing me by my hair and lifted my head. He yelled something, but I was far too gone to be able to make out what he was saying. Suddenly, I found myself released from my bonds, but my body had grown so weak from being tied up for so long I didn't have the strength to hold myself up, and so I collapsed to the floor. I was still trying to figure out what was happening when the Lord drew a sword, raising it above his head. His words in that moment reached me with perfect clarity. "You're a damn witch wearing a saint's skin." A witch? Why was he calling me a witch? The holy daughter of God. I had certainly never made a pact with the devil. Could have given him that idea? What was in store for me now? Had God performed some kind of miracle for him? Dozens of thoughts and questions floated through my mind as death hung over me. I couldn't comprehend anything, and so I didn't feel any fear or anger at my impending death. Simply curious. What had happened to me? But before I had a chance to find that answer, the Lord swung down his blade. Without warning, without any time to prepare, the darkness drains away. A second later, I crashed into the stairs, hard. Right at my ear, I can hear the hiss of the river of blood. The world fades in and out of view, giving way to very real images of a past I never lived. I can practically feel the fire in the eyes of that mad blood banquet's guests. My vision distorts. I can't regain my focus. Whose blood is this streaming down the stairs? Is it hers? Is it mine? Who am I? A saint? A witch? Is what I'm seeing through a lens of clarity? or madness. Wait, no. I am not her. I'm Michelle, no one else. It hurts, doesn't it? It's hard to breathe. Your chest is on fire, your vision is blurry. It's dark, it's lonely, it's scary. Frustrating, it's disheartening, it's exasperating, isn't it? What you're feeling is exactly the pain I felt. It stubbed my toe really bad a couple months ago. I can feel. I reach my hand out in a plea for help, which is when I see something I can hardly believe. Both my arms are covered in gashes, blood flowing from them without end. The raw flesh beneath my skin has been exposed to the open air. All I can bring myself to do is scream. That pain, her horrible past, is doing everything in its power to break me. That 9-year-old girl's sickening experiences are twisting, constricting, and crushing me. Why is this? Same to you? Really that slow, my dear? You're empathizing with my pain. You're just that kind-hearted, Michelle. You said you wouldn't give up, didn't you? You would make your way to me. And surely this won't be enough to do you in. Of course it won't. I muster up every last bit of strength I can. I begin crawling up the stairs. The red river beats against my open wound, stinging painfully. The simple act of lifting an arm or a leg is almost unbearably agonizing. The blood dripping from my lacerated arms mixes with the blood already soaking the tower. It can't be sanitary. So this is the pain Morgana suffered? Do you despise everyone, Morgana? Did your resentment at your mother's betrayal, at the people who came seeking your blood, at the Lord who took your life, turn to a hatred for all of mankind? Your perception of me is still incorrect, Michelle. My grudge is only against a select few. Think about it, my dear. Of the thousands, millions, billions of people living on this planet, my world is comprised of but a minuscule fraction of hatred for all of mankind. Now, what I feel is not nearly so nebulous. Although, if I had died, still believing I was a saint, maybe I wouldn't have such a well-defined mission. Are you saying the Lord didn't kill you? Why, did you actually think this was the end of my tale? Despite all your big talk, you're afraid of having to suffer through any more of that, aren't you? But you're the one who said you wouldn't give in. Go on, feel my pain, without losing your mind. Once again, my surroundings crumble. I have no say, I have no chance to object before I'm dragged back to that repulsive banquet. I reach out, stretching my hand as far as it will reach, but all I can grab is darkness. My bloody body sinks back into the abyss. The pain becomes more than just a memory, eroding away at my consciousness. You're a damn witch wearing a saint's skin. Maybe if I had died then, I wouldn't have become the witch you know now, but that's all conjecture. Theorizing about what could have been is an exercise in futility. But no, I did not die that day. Brought together by constant mistreatment, the Lord's slaves chose that moment to start their revolt. When he swung down his blade, someone bumped into him and was knocked off its course.
I think I pissed off the jester lady because I didn't want to motorboat her tit.
Poor chicken fizzy. I didn't have the strength to get to my feet, so I simply watched the chaos unfold before my hazy eyes. It never even occurred to me that I should try to escape. At some point during the ride, a young man, one of the slaves, grabbed me by my bloody, limp arm and led me out of the Lord's manor. The young man brought me to a slum, a place where the people banded together in their hardship, barely scraping together enough to eat every day, let alone pay the taxes demanded of them. Oh great, we're going to be a whore now. Nice. By the time we had arrived at a small brothel located a ways into the slum, the fog was starting to clear from my mind. I knew where we were, and the feeling of gazes of those scantily clothed women, I trembled. In a sense, that was possibly the most frightened I had ever been in my life, despite everything else I had been through. The idea that I had fallen so far I would have to become a prostitute scared me to death. After all, I was a saint, and saints were supposed to retain their purity. Spreading my legs for any man who gave me enough coins would shatter my very identity. As all that was going through my mind, I probably shouted no in protest because the slave gave me an exasperated look and told me he hadn't brought me here to become a prostitute. He said he knew someone here, someone I could trust, and that she could give me a room. I had trouble believing him, though. I couldn't trust the word of a prostitute. Someone who valued money more than her own body. It was all a trap, I was sure. One day, they would tell me I had to work. Nothing he said would convince me otherwise. And apparently, sensing my mistrust, the slave gave me an apologetic frown and handed me a mirror, saying, "Even if I did, you couldn't get any work looking like that." I believe what I saw. I couldn't believe that couldn't be my face. It had to be an illusion. There was no way. It was not the face of a saint. It couldn't be. It wasn't real. It wasn't possible. Patches of skin had fallen off my face, exposing the raw red flesh beneath. It looked quite similar to what had been done to my arms and legs, except my face had never been cut before. Looking at myself in the mirror, even I doubted my own sainthood. The thing in the reflection was a hellish abomination. It was the twisted face of a witch. Although I was shocked by what I saw, at the same time it answered several lingering questions. It explained why the Lord and his guests had panicked at the sight of me. It also explained why he had said I was a witch wearing a saint's skin. Over the course of the dozen banquets I had participated in, my face must have been mutated. It was into this ugly, sickening, monstrous thing. The sight of what I had become sapped the last bit of willpower from me, not because I was particularly fond of my face or thought myself especially beautiful, but because it crushed me to see everything saintly about me crumbling away. As from God or otherwise, I didn't have the strength left to attempt to overcome it. To say I would rather be dead than struggling longer, I begged the slave to kill me. Taking one's own life was a sin. If I did that, I would not be able to return to my father's side. Now, I wanted to ask him why I had been put through such tribulation. The young man refused. He said, completely missing my intention, that if I persevered, good fortune would eventually find me. He said that if I lived on, I would eventually have a chance to get my payback. I had no such worldly concerns, though. But if no one would take my life, I had no choice but to live. I despised life at the brothel. Men who came to buy their services were disgusting buffoons, the kind of people who would think they could deceive God. The women fawning over them were just as repulsive. That said, I had nowhere else to go, which meant I was forced to suffer that sickening place. But by the time a year or so had passed, my feelings about it had changed. One of the brothel took good care of me, treating me like a sister. At first, it was just irritating. I was a saint. How could a saint have prostitutes sisters? Over time, I got to know them better and grew to appreciate their circumstances and hardships. Despite barely having enough money to keep food on the table, whenever they had a little to spare, they would use it to purchase medicine, ointments to apply to my arms, my legs, and face. And as a result of their generosity, my arms and legs started to look almost human, but nothing had any effect on my face. Occasionally, the slave would drop in to check on me. The other men thought me ghastly and wouldn't get anywhere near me, but he was different. Every time he visited, he would say, "One day, I'll show you the world." And to tell you the truth, I was beginning to grow attached to it all. My time at the brothel was probably, all things considered, one of the brighter chapters of my life. There, I was neither a saint nor a witch, but an ordinary human girl. For the first time, I felt like my life had meaning beyond my assumed divine purpose. I'm beginning to feel kind of happy. And with each passing day, my intractable worldview was gaining a little flexibility. Perhaps I could perform miracles. That didn't necessarily mean I had to be the daughter of God or a saint. Maybe I was just a regular person who happened to possess some unusual abilities. Ridiculous, isn't it? Despite coming to accept my humanity, I refused to let go of my miraculous powers. They were the last thing protecting what I thought of as myself. But to me at the time, it felt like a very dramatic change of heart. 3 years after the revolt at the Lord's Manor, I had my 12th birthday, for which they threw me a little dinner party. Women all pitched in to bake me treats, and the young slave man was there too. I was happy. I thought that if life could continue on like this, I was fine with not going back to being a saint. But for some reason, happiness always seems to slip away as soon as you've got your hands around it. No one sincerely wants to lose it, so why must they? I certainly didn't mind not being miserable. Let me tell you what happened that night. On the night of my birthday celebration, bandits attacked the brothel. Now, the bandits were hardly a rarity in the time. Everyone was always on the lookout, and we never went out at night. They wouldn't stop at robbing you either. They were armed with blades and would frequently kill their targets as necessary. But cautious as we were helpless against a direct raid. The brothel fell into panic, screams echoing in the night. The customers were carved up and left for dead. The women were bound and stowed away to be sold. My peaceful world shattered in an instant. Next thing I knew, I was some slave trader's merchandise. I didn't know what became of the prostitutes who cared for me, or the slave who brought me to them. I assumed the women were sold and the young man slaughtered, but regardless, I found myself being rocked around in the back of a carriage once more. The carriage was packed so tight you could barely see the floor, and it smelled like death. Sweat, urine, feces, every foul odor imaginable, compressed into a tiny space. There were both men and women in there, nearly all of them muttering or groaning or weeping. Everyone was young, ripe to be put to work. It didn't take me long to realize what fate awaited these people, and me. When I did, I just sat there in silence. Then, for the first time, I cried. I was experiencing, I believe, a very human emotion. I was sad. I think I'd rather have those 3 cents than axe. Hurt that I had been taken away from a place where I was happy. The women at the brothel and that young man. It crushed me, and no longer did I wonder why such a thing was happening to the holy daughter of God. Something about my tears must have seemed strange to him, because one man saw me and said...
Yeah, I think he has a problem with the fact that I have no nipples.
I don't know if that's exactly what he said, but it's possible. Why are you crying? He was a curious man. To start, he looked very different from anyone else. The color of his skin, the length of his nose, the shape of his eyes, everything about him was new and unusual. Presently I replied, I'm sad because I didn't get the chance to show my gratitude to the people very dear to me. The man fell silent, looking as though he was deep in thought. I had no idea why he asked me that, but something about him made me uncomfortable, so I didn't bring myself to ask. Several hours later, the man suddenly stood up. The guards had no patience for anyone stepping on the line, and they didn't look like they would hesitate to kill us either. Unsurprisingly, one at the back of the carriage drew his sword and pointed at the man. What was surprising, though, was what happened next. The man, his hand shackled like the rest of us, leapt for the guard, slamming his fist into his face and stealing his sword. Calm your ass down, diabetes. Alright, I think I'm going to take a quick break because I ran out of drink. I'll be back in 2 minutes, okay? Oh yeah. Alright, let's get back into this. More reading. The entire carriage was in shock. The guards were too stunned to effectively react, so they went down quickly. They were quickly cut down, and because the one-man uprising had taken place between cities, there was not one of the slave traders could ask for help before they were slaughtered. In the blink of an eye, it was all over, and there was nothing human about what I had witnessed. If I had to describe it, I would say that it was as though a wild beast had attacked. The man ruffled through the slave trader's clothes until he found the keys, which he brought to me, ordering I unshackle him, and so I did as he commanded. Once I had enough time to process what had happened, the would-be slaves applauded. Their wretched souls had been saved, and for the moment I believed so too. The man's hands were free. He rolled his shoulders a couple of times, made sure everything was in place, and then he began his massacre. Screams of agony filled the carriage as he ran his sword through the helpless men and women packed inside. Blood and guts were splattered against every surface, and those who tried to escape did not get far before mercilessly skewered. It was like a scene out of a nightmare. I was frozen in place, not out of fear, but because my mind had shut down. I couldn't make sense of what was happening, but my mind rejected it. Possibly, and the first one could be betrayal of family, which kind of was like her incest story. And with my brain having given up, my body was no more than a lifeless puppet. In short order, all the slaves were dead, and I was sitting in a pool of blood staring at the man. He pointed his blade at me, and with a little smirk he said, "Why didn't you run?" In turn I asked him, "Why did you kill them?"
No, Ken, I assumed you were heavy into the board.
True, it's true, old man. The smile vanished from his face, and after a few quiet moments of pondering, he replied, "Because I felt like it." "Why haven't you killed me yet?" But he gave a curt, "I don't know," then withdrew his blade and wandered off into the distance. Then I was all alone, surrounded by corpses. I glanced down, and half of someone's face was looking back up at me. Wrapped in absolute darkness, warm blood spills onto my cheeks, my hair, and my skin. There is still a surprisingly large amount of story left, I think, so we could be in for a long one. Chunks of human flesh rained down on me. Make it stop. More pitter-patters. There's no end to the deluge. The smell of death fills the air. I'm stuck with a wave of nausea so strong I can't hold back the contents of my stomach. When my mouth opens to vomit, blood pours into it. Without a hand. Let go of me. Dead bodies grab at my ankles, dragging me down. To where? Hell, or to the mountain of corpses? Now you understand that there was a time, if but briefly, when I was happy, when I felt human emotions. But I wish I never had. If I had remained confined in my daughter of God shell, then I doubt I would have felt so much terror at the sight of death. I can't say anything in response. I can't form words. I feel what she experienced, the massacre she witnessed, the limp flesh piling up around her. Even more than twice her age, it's enough to drive me mad. The fact that a 12-year-old girl had to experience something so unspeakable devastates me. Tell me, my dear, do you pity me? Do you sympathize with me? I never say that word. If you want, if you feel bad for me, then you'll remain with me. You'll feel my pain and despair with me, won't you? The witch's cackle echoes through the pile of bodies. There's not a speck of light, and hideous death lingers everywhere. Helpless to resist, I'm dragged down into a deep, dark ocean, an ocean of blood. Blood ocean. Sounds like another visual novel. Now on with the story. I was at a complete loss for some time after that. I didn't want to return to the city because I knew there was no one who would take me in. There was only the Lord, who had bound me and drained me of my blood. Wandered the roads, no destination in my mind, nothing to defend myself but the clothes on my back. Frankly, I'm rather surprised I wasn't attacked by bandits. After walking for days without food or water, my mind was hazy and my exhaustion at a peak. In the distance, I saw a lake. Still driven by my thirst, I turned my unsteady feet towards the water, not caring that it took me off my main road. And it turned out that it was the correct choice because there was a small cottage beside the lake, smoke rising from the chimney, telling me it wasn't abandoned. Out of sheer desperation, I knocked on the door. No one answered. The door wasn't locked, so I slowly, hesitantly pushed it open. And beyond it, I found an old woman, sitting dead in a chair. The woman was a witch, by trade, that is. It appeared she had a deep knowledge of medicinal herbs, using it to make an assortment of medicines. It's diabetes! I've always thought diabetes was a witch. In her cabinets were dozens of small glass bottles containing dried, powdered leaves and crushed berries, among other things. On the fire was a cauldron, liquid bubbling inside. No one looked as though she was asleep. Presumably, she had passed away at an old age. For there was no sign bandits had been rooting through the college, and she had a look of absolute serenity on her face. Looking over the woman's dead body, I didn't cross myself. I envied her. Dragging the woman's body by her feet, I dumped her into the lake. Why would you... You think doing so makes me a bad person? Makes me unsaintly? You're supposed to throw dead bodies in the lake. Well, I didn't have anywhere else to go, and the owner of the cozy college was no longer of this world. There's no reason I couldn't fill the home in her stead, was there? I deserved to have something I felt comfortable after everything I had been through, didn't I? And so I took up residence in the old witch's cottage and remained there until my 16th year. A long time. By 16, a terrible cynicism had taken root in my heart. No shit. I had no trust for people. I shut them out, building high walls around myself. After such a tumultuous, bloody childhood, it was all I could do to protect myself, to keep my young spirit from cracking. Nevertheless, travelers would, on occasion, pay the old witch's cottage a visit, seeking her medicines. Whenever someone arrived, I would cautiously crack the door open, telling them they could trade for whatever they wanted with food, and never showing my face. One day, a young man showed up at the cottage. My sister has fallen very ill, and she desperately needs medicine. He was very soft-spoken. There was a distinct kindness in his voice, which I thought unusual. Curious. What kind of person could he be? What did he look like? What expressions did he make as he spoke? To satisfy his curiosity, I snuck a peek at him through the cracks in the door. He was a handsome young man with flowing flaxen hair, and upon seeing me, the infant back in disgust, smiled. According to him, his younger sister had fallen gravely ill, and though they had tried a number of remedies, she was still bedridden. Well, he's the Maid. The medicines I gave him too had no effect, but he persisted in his quest, visiting me again and again for new combinations to try. He wanted nothing more than to relieve even the slightest bits of his sister's suffering. And moved by his dedication to his family, I too wanted to do anything I could help. For the first time in years, my world encompassed more than my small cottage. When the young man came, he would ask not only for medicine, but go on walks with me. He volunteered to spend time with me, despite my horrifying appearance. It's not healthy to stay holed up inside all the time. We've got this beautiful lake right here. What do you say we take a little walk around the shoreline? He said with a smile, taking me by the hand. We spoke as we circled the lakeside. His voice was always soft and pleasant, like a ray of light shining through a crack in the walls. When I was with him, I felt like I could be an actual person, an ordinary girl. He talked about his sister more than anything. Whenever he did, he was at his brightest and most melancholy. The young man had been a member of a noble house, but disputes over who was the rightful heir had forced him and his sister out. Shortly after that, his sister had fallen ill and was now bedridden. I'll take anything at this point to make her better. I'll even take a miracle if I can get one. That word, muttered beneath his breath, sparked my memory.
I think he has a problem with the fact that I have no nipples.
You're getting unlucky with those. I mean, you're lucky you win, I just keep getting the damn nipple one. I was a saint. My blood had healing properties. I had no reason to hesitate. Someone needed my help. Who deserved it more than this kind-hearted young man's sister?
Puff, puff.
I decided to tell him what I really was, that my blood had miraculous powers, that I had saved people. At the moment I had been born, the drought plaguing my village had come to an end. that I had been known as a saint, the daughter of God. I told him everything, and he believed it all. He led me to his house where a pale, sickly young girl lay in bed. I actually had a lot of fun with that. Remember the booby scenes we had? I was telling my mom, I'm like, and of course a couple people had never, or hadn't been paying attention to this book, were like, oh, this is awesome. I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. Not a good scene. It's not sexy times. Yes, she's basically naked, but not a fun time. She was a sweet little girl with the same flaxen hair as her brother, who looked like she would have been quite spirited if not for her ailment. It was touching to see the two siblings sitting there together, quietly holding each other. I would gladly give my blood for the two of them. And so I made a new cut on my arm, which had healed considerably thanks to the slave and the woman of the brothel.
Do you want a banana? Feel it down.
I don't know if a banana is going to save her, but maybe.
Do you want a banana? This banana for you.
Ah, yeah.
Thanks for the resub, Aether. And so I made a new cut on my arm, which had healed considerably thanks to the blood, and let the girl drink of my blood. Neither of them had any doubts about my sainthood, and because they believed a miracle occurred, the flaxen-haired girl recovered enough to get out of her bed. I was extremely proud of myself. I felt like for once I had actually saved someone's life. The only issue was, she didn't make a complete recovery. For a few days after drinking my blood, she was in good health, but her condition quickly regressed. I was deeply perplexed by this. That's 6 months. This is way too long. We got dubs, Anki. I would never recommend resubbing that long. Hey. But thank you very much. Now, though, I believe I can explain what happened. Her recovery was nothing more than a placebo effect caused by her faith. But that's something I couldn't have known at the time. We were all three perplexed, and we were all three disheartened. Nevertheless, I was prepared to give her my blood as many times as needed. Whenever her condition worsened, the young man came to request more. Never once did I turn him away. On the contrary, I enthusiastically offered her my services. I guess you are technically talking to or giving her the service. Over time, though, the hope in his eyes began to fade. He asked me on fewer walks, and he seems hesitant to look me in the eye. I assumed it was out of discomfort, out of guilt, out of shame about asking for blood. But I don't think his concerns were for me, rather himself and his sister. As I mentioned earlier, blood was considered unclean in our time, and not only was I giving mine away, I was having his sister imbibe it. Looking at it this way, it would hardly be a surprise for him or anyone else to think what I was doing depraved. As time passed, the flaxen-haired young man seemed to grow more and more disturbed by me. That was what I got for opening it up. That was what I got for letting his kind, warm light shine in on me. The moment things went bad, he pulled away. There were times when I thought I shouldn't have done anything in the first place, but regardless, I held fast to my original decision. I would put myself on the line for them. No one else. Just them. Even if he was afraid of me or had no interest in seeing me, he was offering her my blood. I was firm in my resolve. One day, though, I received a new visitor. The young man was still the only one I would show my face to, the only guest I had let into my walls, so as usual, I took the man's request from behind the cottage door. But I could hardly believe my ears when he began speaking. Are you the witch with the miracle blood? First, how do you know my blood had powers? Second, why did he call me a witch and not a saint? Third, why do you sound like the man who had slaughtered the slave carriage? I told the man he had to leave, that I would not be opening the door for any reason. In response, he said, I am in need of your blood. Could you not spare a little? My blood was for the sick and needy. I would never spare a drop for a murderer like him. I told the man exactly that, demanding he leave. All I could think about was the pile of bodies, the fountain of blood, the man drenched in crimson wearing a ghastly smirk. I trembled behind the door, fearing he may go on another such rampage. Maybe this is the beast when he went back asking for blood. Or asking for medicine. But instead he gave a simple, as you say, and went on his way. I let out a deep sigh of relief, which is when I realized tears were rolling down both my cheeks, like an ordinary girl. 3 days later, the flaxen-haired boy showed up at my cottage. Sorry for being so distant lately. I want to talk things over. Those two sentences were like a light shining from above. I wanted to talk to him too. I wanted to take a walk around the lake and listen to him talk about nothing. I wanted to experience the warmth of his world once more. I wanted to tell him about the terrible man who had been here a few days earlier. About how scared I had been. I wanted him to tell me it would be alright. Talk to you too. I said open the door without a second thought. The way the sun was so bright, all I could make out was his silhouette. I couldn't see the look on his face or the look in his eyes. A gentle breeze blew past. My mind froze. What could this be happening? What did it mean? Why? How? What was that man doing, standing behind him? Why was he carrying a sword? Why was he coming into my house? And why did he swing it down, severing my arm? I was in a daze. I couldn't make sense of anything. I didn't want to. My left arm fell to the floor before I even knew what was happening, and then my legs gave up. The pain, searing and unbearable, came a few moments later, as I was lying in the ever-expanding pool of my own blood. I did something then I had never done before, that I had resisted doing no matter how much blood the Lord had stolen from me. I screamed. Guess they both disarmed us. One with his words, the other with his sword. It was a hideous, visceral noise, a sound I had never thought a saint could make. The same ear-splitting howl the slaves had made as the man had butchered them. I writhed, I wailed, I wept. I crawled across the floor through my own blood. I begged and I begged and I begged for my life. The man walked over and picked up my severed arm, and then, shockingly, he tossed it to the kind-hearted young man, after which he said, "That's your share. It'll last you long enough." Share? What do you mean by share? What the hell was he talking about? Why had he given him my arm? And why had he taken it? I mean, if we we could maybe put it in milk and we could put it back on later? Why was he talking like they knew each other? I had spared blood for him when he asked, hadn't I? So why was he doing this? Was cutting my arm off and stealing it easier on his conscience than simply asking? You understand how I felt, don't you? You can put yourself in my shoes, can't you? The young man refused to look me in the eye. Holding my bloody arm in his trembling hands, he fled from the cottage as quickly as his legs would allow. The man then walked over and picked me up. He had neither the strength nor the willpower to resist. Holding me in his arms, he began to speak. Things I didn't want to know. Things I didn't want to hear. But he didn't care. Nothing personal. I just need your blood. Without it, she'll lose her church. Don't take it personally. Tell me, is there anyone in this world who wouldn't feel a bit of spite after being put through such torture? Was I supposed to let that slide? No one's that much of a saint. My trust had been betrayed, and I was supposed to turn the other cheek? A man had barged into my home uninvited and cut off my arm, and I was supposed to smile and take it? Is there anyone anywhere who doesn't feel even the slightest bit of hatred ever? Is there anyone in this world who could just laugh and brush off this level of abuse? Tell me, is there? Definitely not me. I am like petty to no end. How could I not hold a grudge? How could I not despise them? Possibly forgive them? Skip me in line? Congratulations, no one getting out of line now. Tell me, please. How could I? She needs the money. I needed some way of getting enough money to keep her church running. The Lord made me an offer. If I brought him the witch with the miracle blood, he would finance a whole new church for her. The Lord? Why him again? Why couldn't he leave me alone? After trying to kill me during one of his blood Sabbats, why was he after my blood once more? Had he learned it really did have miraculous powers and decided he wanted me back? You get to be the sacrifice. To keep her church from collapsing, to keep her whole world from collapsing. Sacrifice? Excuse me, what? What's all this about keeping her church from collapsing? You murdered a carriage full of innocent people and you're trying to protect a church? You? Are you out of your mind? Churches where people go to commune with God, to speak with my Father. How dare you soil those sanctified grounds with your filthy hands, you beast? Insulting, sacrilegious, repulsive. Just what do you think we are? Don't take this personally, witch. I'm not a witch. I'm a saint. I was a saint. My blood exists to do the Lord's work, not to satisfy the avarice of men. Why is this happening to me? The man brought me back to the city. Instead of taking me to the Lord's Manor, he brought me to a church on the city's outskirts. But to be honest, it looked more like an estate than a church. The church also served as a hospital, offering free care to less fortunate children, the poor, and the infirm. That was when I learned why he had said they needed money. The owner of the church offered unconditional assistance to anyone who came. Even when food and supplies ran low, they would ration their own in order to keep helping others. As a result, the church was perpetually on the verge of collapse. The church was run by a woman, something exceedingly rare for the time. There was no priest. All management was handled by a single nun, who everyone referred to as the saintess. I was the saint. Why was this woman, who didn't have the ability to perform miracles, being worshipped like she did? Why did the people of the city idolize her? Why were their smiles all directed at her? Why was I not in her place? The man carried me to the top of the observation tower. It was there that I had my reunion with the Lord. I was to spill my blood for the people of the city, but also for the Lord's profit. He was not offering free aid, but selling it as medicine. He claimed it was a miracle elixir, telling no one that it was actually my blood. It was mixed with a beautiful red wine, and drinking it would cure you of any ailment. If they knew it was actually the blood of a witch, they would think it unclean. They would fear it. I remained in prison for a long, long time. In the beginning, the swordsman guarded me. Though before long, the flaxen-haired young man showed up as well. Presumably, one severed arm wasn't enough to keep his sister healthy for long. In listening to the conversation, I learned that to ensure no one else could get in, the observation tower was sealed with 3 locks. The Lord, the swordsman, and the young man each held one of the keys. I was their secret, locked away in the tower for them to drain blood away from wandering eyes. Time went on, and I grew progressively weaker. I lost the will to eat and the will to live. My only view from the tower was the clouds through a window high up on the wall. Occasionally a pigeon would fly in, sometimes a butterfly. I would glare in envy as it fluttered around, free to come and go as it pleases. And soon it was spring. Every spring the church held a festival to pray for the coming year's harvest and the people's well-being. I could hear the bustle from far below through the window as everyone rushed to prepare. I heard the flaxen-haired girl's voice who had regained her health drinking my blood. I heard her brother's voice who had betrayed me. I heard the nun's voice who played as saint in my stead. And I heard the barbaric swordsman's voice who had chopped off my arm. I heard the Lord's voice, the root of all my suffering. People praising the saintess, though I, the true saint, was locked in the tower. I heard people thanking the Lord for his generous donations and miracle medicine that had all come from me, propped up on my suffering. They cheered and clinked glasses of my bloody wine. Cheers. Those merry, peaceful, cheerful, spirited sinners' voices resounded in my tower, and at noon on the day of the festival, the church bell tolled. 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to count, guys. Went from 1 to 11, and with the 12th chime, I died. Oh. As the bell's last pealing faded into silence, the tower door swung open, and on the other side of it were three men. The mess had wanted to drain a little more for me to use in the feast. They arrived at the worst possible moment. The flaxen-haired young man was the first to express his consternation. I never wanted her to die. Was she not eating? The Lord gave my corpse a casual glance and said stone-faced, "Seal the tower off. Understand no one finds out about this." How so calm? You understand what you've done? Pinning the blame on me? How nice it must be to be able to distort reality with panic. The swordsman, who had been silently observing the Lord and the boy conversing, interjected, "You're just as guilty as any of us." Not only did they not mourn my death, they argued over whose fault it was. There was no regret, no remorse. The young man muttered absent-mindedly, I never wanted her to die. What did his intentions matter, though? It was his betrayal that had ultimately tethered me to this mansion. But the fact that they didn't grieve my death, and instead squabbled amongst themselves like filthy rats, was the final straw. Not like plump rats. Boob rats. How could I not despise them? I don't believe I actually had the power to perform miracles when I was alive. It was all faith, the illusion of belief. I was neither a saint nor a witch. The blood wine was only effective because people placed their faith in the other saintess. I was only ever human. But then, in that moment, an actual miracle occurred. Father bestowed upon me his power, or perhaps it was the devil who lent me his strength. I was looking down upon my own dead body, my own wretched self. There was nothing beautiful about the pile of bones I had become. I could almost smell the rotting flesh. That was once a saint? I laughed at the thought. It was absurd, ridiculous, and infuriating. They would pay. Those who had cast me into this hell, who had mocked me, who had done this to me, who had made a witch out of me, heard coursing through me. Revulsion at everyone on these grounds still smiling. They would know just whose dead shoulders their little party was resting upon. If they wanted so bad to call me a witch, then a witch I would be. I would kill them, every last one of them, place a curse on their souls. And so I made my wish. Most people might consider it a curse, but to me it was most certainly a wish. And my father, or maybe the devil, granted that wish. From the garden, there arose a scream. The flaxen-haired young man knew that voice better than anyone. He went deathly pale, darting down the spiral staircase until he reached a window. A young girl was on her knees, vomiting blood in the grass. The young man let out a yelp as he descended the remainder of the staircase. As soon as he reached the garden, he lifted the girl in his arms. But she had already perished. Realizing this, he cried out to the heavens, saying the one thing he should have kept to himself. The witch killed her. The blood of the witch killed my sister. That wine you're drinking is no medicine. It's the blood of the witch. Race car? Alright, sorry. Getting all into this. Thank you for breaking up the fun I was having, Eldon. Here's your precious points. You're all drinking witch blood. Just teasing. Thank you for letting me know. Crushed by the loss of his own family, the young man picked up a silver fork and plunged it into his own throat, ending his life. Naturally, there was an uproar. Goblets of wine crashed against the earth in rapid succession as the people holding them fell to the ground and vomited or convulsed. The nun was the first target of their outrage. What she had claimed to be medicine had turned out to be blood, an unclean substance, the blood of a witch, no less. A servant of the church, a servant of the Lord, had given her followers blood to drink, and at this, their indignation surged uncontrollably. The people surrounded her, tying her up and throwing her to the ground. As they prepared to inflict righteous justice upon her, the swordsman soared down the stairs into the garden, plunging his blade into anyone standing near the nun. The cries of agony ringing through the church grounds were ear-splitting. It was no longer a place of God, but hell on earth. Hell built up by the hands of man, hell painted red with the blood of their brothers. The people armed themselves with anything they could find and went after the man. As much of a beast as he may have been, he stood little chance against such numbers. It is the fate of a beast to be exterminated by those he terrorizes. And once he was gone, the nun had no one left to protect her. She too was consumed by their frenzy. All that remained was an inextinguishable inferno. Hysteria and despair, madness and outrage, and no outlet for it. It was a revolt that made the slaves' uprising at the Warden Manor look like a game. Eventually their rage found a new target, the Lord. It was only natural, for he was the true villain. He was the one who had given money and the witch's blood to the church. He was the one who had profited off of it. And above all, people had resented those who stood above them, particularly in times of unrest. The city resounded the cries for the Lord's head, and he looked down upon it all from the safety of the observation tower. He could do nothing but watch as his domain burned. I can only imagine how painful that must have been, but before long, having seemingly had made his peace, he began descending the spiral staircase. He opened the door at the bottom, revealing himself to the people. But before the door had swung all the way open, before he had a chance to say his final words, someone ran a blade through his chest. With that, the raging furor mostly settled down, but it was hardly the end of the destruction. Mere days later, a plague befell the city. Dreadful black spots covered the flesh of the infected. They writhed in pain, screaming and vomiting blood. Ghastly howls echoed through the streets, as though the whole city had been possessed. It became a cursed land. In their diseased haze, the people muttered again and again, "We've been cursed by the witch." In less than a week, the entire city was dead. My body was left abandoned at the top of the observation tower, and as if to seal the curse away, in their final days, the people shuttered all the windows, wrapping the house in darkness. It's possible that was no miracle either. Please explain what happened to them. Locked away for so long in that dirty tower, maybe I caught some kind of disease. And then when the people drank my blood, they too were infected. Hardly anything out of the ordinary about that. The first to die, the girl had already been ill. Her body merely chose the worst possible time to yield to her ailment. That was all that had happened. Indeed, it was nothing more than a fluke, an improbable stroke of luck, unbelievable, unfortunate accident for the city and those 3 men, indescribably fortunate accident for myself. But I wish to believe it was a miracle. That even if my blood didn't have healing properties, and even if I wasn't a saint, my wish, my curse, was what caused that uprising. That was my miracle. Granted me by God or the devil, I choose to believe that. And that my miracle took on its true form thereafter. My curse had brought death upon the 3 men, but for whatever reason, my rancor was far from sated. They had died. For what? Death is but a transient agony. It's nothing compared to what I went through. But my next wish, a wish for their reconstruction. I wish eternal suffering on their souls. I wish to trap them in a never-ending cycle of pain and hatred. That was my wish for the flaxen-haired young man. He trusted his dear sister, and he desired a quiet life, so I wished for him just to have that. I wished for his dearly beloved sister to love him more than anything in the whole world. For his world to be destroyed by love gone too far. This was my wish for the beast-like man. He was conscious of his tendency for violence, and he yearned to be more human. So I had his inner beast toned up just a little. I saw to it that he would never become human, though he would never have the peace he so desired. My wish for the Lord was more straightforward. He seemed to have a great affection for wealth and authority, so I ensured that those were the only things he could ever have. Who needs love or friendship when they could be drowning in power? Once he had lost everything, solitude would be his only companion. Wishes can come true, as long as you always hold fast, never stop wishing, never surrender. They can't come true. This actually sounds like a nice thing, a nice saying. Eternal suffering on all their souls. There we go, we're bringing it back. An endless cycle of reconstruction and unavoidable tragedy. Tell me, my dear, do you sympathize with me? Will you curse them with me? Will you take my hand and revile them with me? Be with someone who is proud to have you. This time, when my body crashes into the tower stairs, I'm unable to make a noise. The obstruction is less mental and more physical, excruciating pain. It's so intense I can't even eke out a scream. My vision is distorted, my mind thick with fog. I feel like I'm falling to a bottomless pit if I loosen my grip on my conscience even slightly. Through the haze, I see my own severed left arm. I really wish the text was back up again, it's much easier for me to read. Reflected in a pool of blood, I see my face, large chunks of flesh peeling off. You trying to crawl up the stairs like a worm, how pathetic. It's like I'm looking at my old self. I can barely form a coherent thought. I can't lament her immune fate. I can't mourn for her, or be shocked by the revelation about 3 men and her history with them. Pain, it fills every corner of my mind, every nook and cranny of my body. You figured it out by now, haven't you, my dear? You'll never make it to me. It's not possible. But it's not your fault. It's not because you're weak. There's simply no one who can bear this pain. You're allowed to give up, to rest. There's nothing wrong with that. The pain, the crushing weight, it's miserable, isn't it? But all you have to do is turn back, and it'll all go away. The witch whispers her sweet temptations. Put in a fine effort. No shame in throwing it all and throwing in the towel. Her voice is soft, gentle, pleasant, saccharine. Concede defeat. If I do, it'll all go away. The searing pain spreading from the stump of my left arm. The sensation of being perpetually drained of my blood. The miserable solitude of staring at a door that never opens. The laughter I can hear through the window. My miserable wailing and this maddening hatred. I can end it all. That's right, it will all be over. I have the power to make it stop. All stop. No, I can't let that happen. No, I have to. Get her back at my side. I'll do anything to take her back. If it means I end up 1,000 tiny scraps of meat. I will not give up on her for any reason. You won't, will you? Beautiful resolve. Willing to sacrifice yourself to save the girl, like a hero of legend, or maybe a fairy tale prince. No, I am no hero and I am no prince. I'm a human, an ordinary man. I don't have any extraordinary potential. I'm not a courageous leader or a charismatic general. I'm just a regular man, in love with a regular woman who refuses to lose her. I don't need any other accomplishments, only that. That's all I need, because I'm just a regular man. My one act of resistance. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how much you cut me up. Nothing changes what I have to do. I have to take her back and set her free of this mansion, nothing else. And I will never, and never will I back down on that. Arms or no, as long as I can move, I must push forward. I must make my way to the woman who waited for me for so long. Up, to the top of the tower, forward, ever onward. Dragging my bloody body, pain the pain no mind, I once more arrived at the top of the observation tower. I placed my hand on the door, holding myself up with my lacerated right arm. A moment to catch my breath, then lift my head, gaze into the void and shout her name. Morgana! I pity you, I truly do. You were a saint shackled with unfathomable fate, and for that I am enraged. As I have felt your pain, as I have watched your life, I too felt a burning hatred for those three men. If you truly feel that way, then why can't you just stay here with me? We're all dead anyway. We reached our ends. Do you honestly think there's anything more for us? There isn't. The end is the end. But what do you say to the three of us, me, you, and Giselle? Virtually the three of them and everyone they cared about. Make them suffer here for all eternity, in this house. And that way, you and Giselle can be together forever too. That's not an option. Why not? Because hatred only brings you pain. Well, that's brilliant. You spouting stupid platitudes at me? I can't believe my ears. Leave your nonsense moralizing about how hatred does you no good. I won't hear it. I'm doing just fine for myself, my dear. In fact, I've never been better. I feel wonderful. Did you think that would be enough to persuade me, really? How disappointing. And here I thought you understood me. Morgana, why don't you just say what you really think? Go right ahead. Hate them as much as you want, but keep me, Giselle, out of it. Why did you just say that? I do feel bad, truthfully. All the time we spent together, never once did I ask about your life. I was so focused on myself, and in the end, I pushed you away. That you did. You wanted to be with Giselle, so you pushed me out. I wish I had asked you sooner. It wouldn't have changed anything, though. One puny man knowing what I went through would hardly be enough to erase the loathing I bear. It would have turned out the same regardless. There was nothing you could have done for me. There is nothing. Still, I would like to apologize. Had I known what you carried in your heart, perhaps I could have chosen my words better. Instead of rejecting you, I could have chosen some other response. I cannot remain in this house, nor can I allow her to stay either. But I'd like to apologize for both my past actions and my present. Well, in that case, open the door, Michelle. I take another moment to catch my breath, and then I gather my strength into the hand on the door. Blood seeps from my fingertips, slowly trickling down the rough surface. It reminds me of my death. I'm coming for you. I push open the door, hoping that it will be the last. Beyond it lies light for Giselle, and if possible, that it might cast a bit of light on Morgana's heart as well. However, why am I in my bedroom? What I find behind the door is the last thing I expect. As she appears from the shadows of my chambers, I can't conceal my surprise. Giselle? Is this another illusion, Morgana? No, not. I am the real me. Thank you for coming all the way here for me. She's thanking me? But why isn't she smiling? That was very kind and courageous of you, Michelle. I'm deeply moved you would have such compassion not only for her, but for someone like me. But do you know what else you are? You're a worm. What is it this time, Morgana? You say we pull back the curtain, my dear. What curtain? There's one detail that hasn't come yet to light. This isn't your first return to the mansion, is it? You've been back numerous times, each time not remembering her, and each time hurting her even more. you talking about? What am I talking about? Oh, you know good and well, my dear. Would you honestly believe that all the other pieces were in their rightful places and you alone were some exception? I never... Tell me, how was it? Living in so many different eras, not knowing who you were, and playing with all the different men. Oh, you're out of your mind. You make it sound like I was... Not like, my dear. You are the white-haired girl. Enough. How could anyone possibly confuse me with her? To tell you the truth, I couldn't see you as anyone else. Your white hair, red eyes, porcelain skin, and your name. Tell me, what about you isn't the same? We're not the same person. I saw the letter. What? The one you had hidden. No. You didn't think that was worth mentioning? No, Giselle, I didn't mean... You're exactly right, my dear Giselle. He deceived you. He kept a very important secret from you. Despite showing up before you multiple times, he cast you aside again and again. No. No, that wasn't me. It wasn't... It all makes sense now. Nothing you ever did was for me. No, Come on, Giselle. I know exactly how you feel. Michelle? Please, don't say it. Not that, please. I'm begging you. You're... No, please don't, Giselle. Not actually... a man at all, are you? You're disgusting. You're the only one who could have been, my dear. The one who could have been the white-haired girl. The next moment, my whole world comes tumbling down. I could have been born anything, losing my arm, having my face torn off. Any amount of pain, I could have handled it. For you, I could have done it. But this, hearing those words coming from your mouth, being rejected by you, that I cannot. Those words, they bury me alive. You're the one person I never wanted to hear them from. When I learned my father, Antonin, had passed, I wrote 2 letters, one to my brother and one to my mother. It's the first time I had found the courage to face my mother, to open up to her. I wanted to show her who I was, convince her that I wasn't cursed. If I could be myself when I returned to the capital with Giselle. Dear mother, there's something I wish to tell you, something that means a great deal to me. If I ask you, please hear me out. If I ask you, please accept it. Mother, I no longer bear any resemblance to my present lot in life. Nevertheless, I would ask you to concede one thing. That I was never cursed. That I was always your son. That I am Michelle, not Michelle. I found someone whom I care for deeply, a woman. I love her with all my heart. I would like to spend the rest of my life with her. I do not wish for much, simply to have a quiet life with her. To go through our days together, man and woman. This is the one thing I want. Mother, I know you are aware that my body is no longer female. I am a man. My heart is male. And I ask for you to please accept that. I have no grudge with you. In fact, I am incredibly grateful to you for bringing me into this world. With love, your dearest son. Shortly after sending that letter, I was killed. I'm dragged down, against my will, into the darkness. Beneath me spreads my own past. My door, the door I swore to never open. But despite all my efforts to resist, the door sucks me in, into a world I never wanted to see again, a history I never wanted revealed, a past I never wanted anyone to see. Nonetheless, the door opens. By the way, just in those 2 minutes, we just went through 3 different chapter changes. That's why I'm I don't really know how long each chapter is. So we did 3 in 10 minutes, and the one before that was an hour and a half. Look at this bad boy. Coming up to a couple death things. Yeah, this one is the 7th one, and then there's the final chapter. Final chapter has 3 chapters, this one has 1. 11, 12, 13, 14. There were two things out of the ordinary about that baby. The first, its parents embraced, and the second, they wholly rejected. Although, it was some time before the baby's second peculiarity emerged, and until it finally did, no one was any the wiser. Not even the child itself. Its mother surely enjoyed the brief period of happiness, before her child finally realized the truth, owing to the fact that the moment it had let out its first cry, everything came crashing down. This day, she still doesn't know the child she gave birth to, that she set loose a curse upon the world, a curse that turned angels into demons, humans into witches. And God, look at that. She's beautiful, isn't she? Have you seen her laugh? Not yet, I haven't. At any rate, that color certainly is something else. God's gift to us. No, she's an angel sent from heaven. An angel. Oh yes, I can see it now, Liddy. Her white hair and almost translucent skin, it's beautiful. Why, she opened her eyes. Maybe she felt you nearby. You like your father more than me? Is that it, sweetheart? Gorgeous, aren't they? Such a deep, enchanting color, like two little jewels. That they are, a magnificent shade of red. I've never seen anything like that. And this is our child. She's special, I can feel it. We have to take good care of her. Most of the other kids were ignoring. She needs a name, one that's just as special as her. Have you already chosen, Antonin? You were begging for a girl. You do it. Besides, I already had to rack my brain for the boys' name. Now it's your turn. Are you really going to let me? Quite a lot of pressure. Name her after an angel, then. Well, I like that. Alright, then. We'll call her Michelle, after the Archangel Michael. You'll grow up to be beautiful as an angel, my Michelle. I've always wanted a little girl. With her snowy white hair, skin so pale you could see the veins beneath, and her ruby red eyes. Very peculiar looking little girl, and her mother showered her with love. She truly believed her daughter was an angel sent from above, born as a human child. The blessed babe, born a girl, was given an angel's name. Michelle. Me. Checkmate. I see. That's what you did. Oh, he was the good brother. Curses, I completely overlooked that. I thought you were advancing with your pawns, but that was all a diversion. You're too short-sighted, Didier. You need to look at the big picture. Sometimes it's the tactician and not the soldier holding the sword. You got me. You're quite good at this, Michelle. What inspired you to take such an aggressive strategy? It was not inspiration. It was derivation. Derivation? Chess is in many ways similar to real-world tactics. Oh. My military texts. You haven't read all of them, have you? I have nothing but time. Impressive. Even I haven't read all the books in my room. Am I join the order with that kind of knowledge? You jest. You're the one who's going to be a knight. That I am. War is the men's job, after all. I want you to be there to welcome me home. Didier, oh Didier. I'm in a bit of a bind. Oh, hello there, Michelle. You're home yet, George? He's got back, yep. Oh, playing chess again, are we? Let's see, what do we have here? Get away from the board. Max, you got trounced, huh? You call yourself her big brother. As if you're any better. That's not funny, George. You cannot approve of someone who can't keep up with the flow of battle becoming a knight. In her family's rank, you would eventually be put in charge of other soldiers. What? Are you worried about me? No, I'm saying... I've been blessed with such a caring sister. But fear not. I have a guardian angel, after all. Where's the logic in that? Sorry to interrupt your moment, but... Does nobody listen to me? Now, don't pout. So, what seems to be the problem? Yes, listen to this. The royal court is holding a swordsmanship show. For some reason, I was selected to participate. Unfortunate for you. I can already see you on the ground sobbing. Hey now, that's just mean. Besides, my hands weren't meant to hold a sword. Look at these dainty fingers. They're covered in calluses. Dainty calluses. Tell me, why would they even have an artist sword fight? That's the whole point, I would think. No need to get so worked up. No one's expecting you to win. Maybe not, but we do have a name to worry about. And you know what that means, don't you? I'm going to lose. That's a given. But I want to do it in style. I feel bad for your sword. Oh, don't be like that. Oh, come on. Time's a-wasted. To the courtyard we go. Just so you know, if I train you, I'm going to train you right. All I know is how to look good. What is it, Michelle? May I watch? Fine with me, but you know you can't go outside. I'll be watching from the hall. I can open one of the windows facing the courtyard. Still, you need to be careful. You can't spend too much time in the sun. No. Really nice picture. I had two older brothers. The eldest, Didier, belonged to an order of knights that served the church, and below him was George, who served as a court artist. He was, in all likelihood, who would inherit the family estate, as knights were not formally allowed to own property. Nevertheless, the Bollinger family name was upheld by Didier. And then there was me, the youngest, the only daughter. Physically, I was not in particularly good health. Because of the painting of my skin, I was hypersensitive to sunlight. Rarely left the estate. My world was contained entirely within these walls, and perhaps out of some sense of pity or compassion, my two brothers spent a good deal of time with me. He had played chess with me, and George has taught me how to draw. And among other things, they taught me how to read and write. For a girl, I was incredibly fortunate. One thing I wasn't allowed to do, though, was hold a sword. Hardly anything unusual. It bothered me deeply. It had for as long as I could remember. If I had been told I couldn't do it because I lacked the strength, I probably would have accepted it, but the reason given was not that I was weak, but that I was a girl. And with each passing year, that smoldering frustration in the back of my heart grew larger. Come on, put your back into it. Like I said, all I want to do is put on a good show. Oh, you'll put on quite a show, unless you learn how to swing that sword properly. Give me a break. Out on the garden, my two brothers traded swings, bare-chested. All I could do, though, was observe from afar. Every time I found myself forced to watch, I felt a sharp pain like a needle piercing my chest, a needle that seemed to be growing ever thicker. My mother and my brothers loved me dearly, but they didn't change the fact that the outside world lay beyond my reach. I was trapped in the state by my own body. At first I thought that was the root of my pain. The answer seemed to contradict something inside me, something I couldn't explain. Something I couldn't ignore even as a child, so I searched within myself trying to find an explanation for the constant swelling sensation of wrongness inside me. Day after day I gazed into the cavern of my own heart. My. Now what are those two doing out there? George is asked to do a swordsmanship show at the royal court, so Didier is helping him. Swordsmanship? Oh, I just can't stand those shows. Fights are so dangerous, I can't watch people swinging them at each other. Why don't you come back to your room with me, Michelle? I'd love to teach you how to sew. Mom, I want to watch them practice. Michelle? First of all, you need to watch how you speak, young lady. You do not call me Mom, you call me Mother. This is what happens when you spend so much time around the boys. As your mother, I don't approve of you playing chess or making art. A woman has no need for such skills. It will only make you look insolent. But I want you to grow up to be a respectable woman. That is my job and my dream as your mother. Now, come. I'd rather you looked at some fine embroidery with me than a couple of sweaty men. Yes, Mother. You're my little girl, after all. Spending time with my mother was agonizing. Is it because her world was so isolated? No, that wasn't it. Her gentle voice, the sweet scent of her perfume, the way she constantly told me how much she loved me. Her diatribes about how wonderful it was to be a girl. Everything she did put so much pressure on me. But above all, she loved to say, "You are my little girl, after all." There was nothing strange about that at all. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw the daughter of a noble. That was who I was. But the only thing wrong was how I felt. Every time I was faced with the reality of who I was, my heart wavered. I had no interest in learning to embroider. I didn't understand why that was necessary. I knew what purpose it served. Everything she taught me, I would need when I was wed off to some noble boy, and it was my responsibility to learn those things. It didn't feel right, though. I couldn't even accept the fact that one day I would be married. There was an ominous shadow lurking in my future. I would have preferred ravaging the books of Didier's room than having a conversation with my mother. Tales of heroes of old and dauntless soldiers, military texts written by tacticians in the midst of war. Thinking about them set my heart aflutter and made me think about my brother. He was trained to be a knight. I envisioned armor flecked with rust, a long sword glimmering with the blood of savages. Soon I found myself in fantasy, imagining how the sword would feel in my hands. The sensation of the hilt beneath my fingers. Gallantly, like my brother. How heavy was it? How much muscle would I need to carry it? How much impact would I feel in my hands when I struck something? How restricted would my vision be wearing a helmet? How much did it weigh? How hot was it inside? I had no way of answering these questions, though.
Do you want a banana? Peel it down and go Do you want a banana? This banana for you.
39 months. Okay.
What have you done with him?
Did we talk? Thank you for the resub. Way too many months now. Kill me now. I have some cloth, if you'd like to wipe yourself off. Oh yeah, thanks. So dead. You were at it for a long time. I've never known Dean to half-ass something once he gets started, which I guess is what makes him knight material, but are you opposed to him becoming a knight? Well, you know, I kind of assume he'd inherit the estate and handle taking care of everything. So it's like, why has he got to go and be some priest weapon boy? I'll tell him I said that, though. He wants to fight for the greater good. I don't know. Despite the name, he wouldn't be doing much fighting himself. Anywho, someone so passionate as him might be able to make changes for the better. Changes? He knows what condition the order is in. That's why he's joining. Here he wants to whip him into shape, melt him down and reforge the whole thing. Huh? So he might be able to change things. What? What are you muttering about, Michelle? Hey, oh, hold it. The pain I felt in my chest when I smelled the sweat emanating from George's body. When I looked at his slender but distinctly male build, I was convinced it was admiration. Did I want to become a knight too? Maybe the discomfort I felt was because I wanted to be like him. Would it all go away if I was able to change the rules and I could join the order as well? I was positive it would. Idiot. Michelle, hold on. You can't come barge into my room unannounced. I'm trying to change. We need to talk. I said stop. You're a girl. You can't just walk in on a man as he's changing. I see no reason for you to be so self-conscious. Listen to me, Michelle. Georges tells me you're planning to overhaul the order. He told you that? No, I hardly have such grand aspirations. Don't be coy. I believe you have what it takes to do it. What's gotten into you? You're unusually fiery today. I want to ask you a favor. When you have enough influence in the order, I would like you to make me a knight too. You what? I'm tired of the way Mother treats me. Always saying I can't do this or that because I'm a girl. I want to learn how to swing a sword. I don't want to do embroidery. I don't care about jewelry or fancy clothing. Come on, Grump. But Michelle, what's gotten into you? I'm so much more interested in the whole world you live in, Didier. So please. Well, I'll be. I suppose we must have let ourselves spend too much time with you. Not you too, that's exactly what Mother said. First of all, Michelle, you don't have the strength to hold a sword. Then I'll train until I do. If that doesn't work, I still have my mind. You know good and well I could. We're not chess pieces. But Didier. But above all, you're missing the most important point. I will not for any reason become the kind of man who makes a woman take up a sword. Didier. This may seem normal to you growing up with two brothers. I want you to listen to me, Michelle. Men and women walk different paths. Men wield swords and fight against dangerous enemies, and they do so to protect the weak, women and children. I'm here to protect you and your mother. You're no different than her. You don't treat me any different than her. Honestly, what's gotten into you, Michelle? We'll find out what's gotten into Michelle after this. Grab something to drink. Parched. Excuse me?
Best support I can ever. Shit.
Oh yeah, let's get back into this. Got a little bit more time, then I gotta make myself some food. Good day. Honestly, what's gotten into you, Michelle? Why wouldn't I treat you like a daughter of the Bollinger estate? Thanks. Your brother and I, we never meant to make you think. Forget it. What? I'm sorry. I knew what I was asking is foolish. Oh? But I thought you would understand how I feel. Even just a little bit. Was I expecting him to understand? Even I didn't understand the things I felt. I want to know what had gotten into me far more than he did. What I had done was no better than throw a temper tantrum. Was I that desperate to become a knight? No. I just thought that was the key to pains in my heart lay down in that road, but ultimately there was nothing. Assuming Didier had agreed, and assuming I did become a knight, I wouldn't do anything for the core problem. As I dashed from my brother's room, I snuck a peek at him. His face was filled with intense perplexity. How could I blame him? I had tried to push a dozen different ideals onto him at once. I filled myself with the vain hope that he would somehow be able to make sense of me when I couldn't even make sense of myself. And now, bubbling with unwarranted anger at being let down, I fled to my own chambers. I can only imagine how frustrating that must have been for him. It was the spring of my 14th year. Heavy clouds filled the sky, blocking out the sun and giving the impression of late evening all throughout the day. Everyone preferred it when the sun wasn't out. The sun would kill me. It was bright enough, the whole world was so white I could hardly see a thing. Which meant I could only go outside on days when the weather made most everyone else gloomy. As I was meandering through the courtyard, I spotted someone I had never seen before. A warm breeze blew past, picking up a swirl of flower petals. The girl's dress hung lightly over her frame, tracing her gentle curve. Who are you? I asked bluntly, and the girl twirled around, smiling. My apologies. I have such a beautiful courtyard here, I let myself in for a little walk. Long chestnut hair flowed over her round, feminine shoulders. It swayed slightly in the wind. The cloud of melancholy dissipated in the light of her smile. You must be Michelle. You're just as pretty as I heard. And you are? My name is Amy. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Finally meet me? What are you talking about? As I stood there, baffled by this strange woman, she stepped towards me, kissing me softly on the cheek. Thrilled to make your acquaintance, Michelle. Her voice was like someone pouring honey into my ear, electrifyingly sweet. I'm George's fiance, and it also stuck another needle into my chest. It was a noble girl by the name of Amy Gilbert. Though only 15, she was the very image of a refined, polished to a shine. No one had told me my brother was to be married. He came out of nowhere, and it seemed I was the only one who didn't know. That evening, when the family gathered around the table for supper, Amy was there too. They had prepared an extravagant feast for the occasion. My father Anton looked so proud of his two boys. Didier soon to receive his assignment, and George is to be wed. The banquet proceeded smoothly. Not a doubt in the air that we were finally a happy family. But my mind was elsewhere. I found myself unconsciously chasing Amy with my eyes, watching the way those slender fingers gripped her spoon, her full lips parting to allow a piece of fruit in, her deep red tongue visible for but the briefest of moments. The way all the muscles in her face seemed to relax in bliss as sweet juices seeped into her mouth. The way she spoke, so soft and gentle, letting each sound hang in the air just briefly before intoning the next. It was distinctly feminine, in a different way than my mother. Apparently, Amy was going to live at the Bollinger estate for some time. My mother was pleased to have another girl around, or more specifically, she was relieved to have found someone other than my brothers for me to spend time with. I'd assumed I would hate being around another girl. Surely she wouldn't be able to play chess after all, but for some reason, I felt much less suffocated around her than my mother. One night, Amy's family and an array of nobles from both houses' social circles assembled at the estate for a party. A din the likes of which I had never heard in my life filled the great hall. Everywhere I looked, there were people. Servants scrambled every which way, silverware clanged against dishes in an almost constant hum, voices from all directions. I felt moderately ill. Hey Dee, I feel like we're critically short on waiters. Don't look good for us. And who was it who went and inviting everyone he came across again? Who are those people? They're artists, like me. I met them at the court. I am an artist.
I am an artist.
Let's see. We have some painters, composers, sculptors, troubadours, poets, writers, you name it. None of them have any connection to the Gilberts or Bollingers. Sure they do, they're my friends. And you know, this is me and Amy's party. You can play with your friends elsewhere. Hope you realize we have a reputation to uphold. Off in one corner, several men, presumably George's friends, gathered in a circle. They stood out from the other aristocrats, both in appearance and the air they gave off. The clothes they wore, the embroidery hidden beneath their jacket cuffs, the manner of their speech, the way they held themselves, they were, simply put, a far cry from the hard-headed Didier's ideal party guests. Even watching them from afar, it was clear my two brothers ran in very different crowds. The only reason headstrong Didier and the free-spirited Georges were able to get along at all is because they were brothers. If they had been strangers, I doubt their paths would cross much, and if they did, those intersections would be quite rocky. Hey, come here, guys. His shouting voice pulled my preoccupied mind back to the surface. He summoned his friends, then led them to where I stood. What are you doing hiding in the corner, Michelle? I didn't even notice you. Let me introduce you to a few of my friends. Oh, Georges put his hands on my shoulders, peeling me off the wall and standing me in front of his male friends. Socialization was the last thing on my mind. Search for Didier, hoping he would come to my rescue, but he was off trading pleasantries, facing away from me. This is my baby sister Michelle. Be nice. Georges, I don't. Graces, your skin is even more pale than I imagined. It's like something out of a fairy tale. And why have you never brought her with you to court? You'd be a sure hit. And how old are you now? 12, mayhap? No, don't treat the lady like a child. I'll have you know she's 14. All the more reason she should be out there making friends. The whole court would flip if they knew you had such a gorgeous sister, Georgia. Be a brute, my man. Our little angel has to be kept inside for personal reasons. Uh-oh, sounds like I haven't been showing the lady her due respect. I've yet to even properly introduce myself. How rude indeed. Their laughs grated on my nerves. So did the way Georges spoke as though I was his property. They looked as though they were praising me, which made me sick to my stomach. I've been paying enough attention to notice the man who I asked if I was 12, and the rest of them, too, examining from head to toe in search of curves. I was indeed underdeveloped for 14. What did it matter? I didn't want a body shaped like Amy's or my mother's. Now the milady, a proper greeting. The man got down on one knee before me. For a split second, I didn't comprehend what he was doing. Come on, Michelle. He's waiting. He whispered into my ear. All came back to me, the traditional greeting performed between a man and a woman. Come on, Michelle. Don't tell me you forgot what to do. I knew the process. I had that knowledge. Mother had taught me the rules. Taught me the procedure. Was to present my hand to the man for him to kiss. All I had to do was hold up my hand, but I was frozen. My body fought tooth and nail against the simple act. How did a man putting his lips on my skin sent a chill through me? Why? Why was this a traditional greeting? I have to go through this. Michelle! At the sound of George's frantic voice, my arm creaked up from my side. Then I remembered that despite being his friends, they were still nobility. As wanton as his social interactions may have been, he still had a reputation to maintain. I understood that. I also understood that, as their sister, it was my responsibility not to do anything that might tarnish either of my brothers' names. Anytime. Also, by tradition, the man wasn't supposed to actually kiss the woman's hand. The proper way to do it, he simply mimicked the act, rather than make it real contact. That much I could handle. The man kneeling before me gave an uncomfortable chuckle at my reluctance, shrugged, and reverently took my hand in his. And then he pressed his lips firmly against my skin. There was a vaguely warm sensation on the back of my hand for the briefest of moments. What do you... Reflexively, I smacked the man's hand away. George's eyes went wide in horror, and the man gave another playful shrug. I was merely offering you a greeting, milady. Or is even that a new experience to you? Your innocence is truly precious. I was half a second away from throwing a barrage of insults, but I bit my tongue and stomped off instead. Michelle! Hey, come back, Michelle! I had spent all the time convincing myself I couldn't humiliate my brothers, but now I wouldn't hear a word of it. I had drawn a fair bit of attention, and other people tried to stop me too, but I brushed them all off, marching my way out of the great hall. I feel so dirty. You'd call that a greeting? That wasn't a greeting, that was... I'll be taking that. I say, practically swiping a glass of water off a passing waiter's tray. With it, I washed my hand by the window facing the courtyard, but no matter how much water I poured over it, I couldn't erase the sickening sensation of his mouth in my hand. So I rubbed it with my sleeve until my skin was bright red. I had to feel something else, anything else, even pain. Think before you act, George. What were you doing inviting people like that into our home? I was angry, and I had every right to be. He had not performed the proper greeting. Even in jest, he had no business actually putting his lips on my hand. It was not acceptable behavior for an aristocrat. He was a guest. He should have been ashamed. Was I angry that he was disrespectful? No, that wasn't the reason. It wasn't very nice yet, running off like that. The very sound of voice, I couldn't turn... Wait.
69, nice.
I couldn't turn back. I felt a sickening warmth almost directly against my back. The man from the great hall grabbed me by the wrist, spun me around, and pressed me against the wall. The bitter scent of wine wafted from above. The hell are you doing? I tried a second time to get away from him, but that was when reality sunk in. I couldn't do it. All the strength I could muster wasn't enough to make the man's hands budge. Man's hand budge. Almost said bulge. You don't make people's hands bulge. My arms were locked in place. I didn't think he was especially strong either. He was hardly built like Didier. And still, I couldn't move an inch. You got a tongue like a boy, milady. You know some people are fond of that these days. Can't say I mind myself. Let go. Had I always been this feeble? Were my arms truly so worthless I couldn't even escape this brute's grip? Why'd I have to get stuck with this body? Now, just so we're clear, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm no monster, I promise you that. Then why are you holding me against the wall? Because I want a chance to try and woo you. I apologize if I made you uncomfortable back there. The second I laid eyes on you, I knew you were a keeper. Then let go of me. If I do that, you'll run away. And it's my personal rule to never let go of anything I like. Your brother says you can't go outside, so if I let you loose now, I might never get a chance to catch you again. I wanted to vomit, apparently taking my silence for approval. The man perked up and kept going. If you're not accustomed to being around men, then why don't we use this opportunity to get familiar? Not a half bad idea, if I do say so myself. I think we get along quite well. Besides, I'm a minstrel. And sometime with me, I'll write you all the songs you could possibly want. Get away from me. Ah, you really do have the most striking eyes. I want to keep them all for myself. For peepers. With a muse like that, I could write the most incredible songs you've ever heard. I said, get back, you creep. Huh? That's odd. That one's never failed me. The man brought his face just inches from mine and peered into my eyes. I could feel his hot, wine-stench breath against my cheeks. It gave me the chills. I couldn't understand why this was happening to me. Panic and confusion had my heart racing. Go try your luck with someone else. I'm not interested. You will be soon enough, darling. You simply never known a man's touch. He drew closer, very practically on top of me, but still, he closed in. Closer and closer. The world faded out. I couldn't see anything. I could feel his rising body heat so near it made me nauseous. My eyes flung open, but there was nothing there. I could only feel... I couldn't move. My body wouldn't budge. In my mind, I kicked the man away, pulled my fist back and slammed it into his jaw, again and again and again, so his face was unrecognizable. Again, I beat him, but reality would have none of that. But Michelle! Hey, what do you think you're doing? 3 seconds? 10 seconds longer? I had no idea how much time I had lost. But the next thing I knew, George's had the man by the collar. I fell back against the wall, staring absent-mindedly as the two struggled. They traded blows and they traded insults. Before long, they had drawn a crowd. While they were at it, I distractedly drifted away. I only had one place to go. I didn't even bother to light a candle. I just stared into the darkness. My heartbeat was maddeningly loud in my otherwise silent chambers. What had happened? What had he done to me? Why couldn't I do anything? The last thing I wanted to do was cry. Tears only served to worsen my humiliation. Only magnify how wretched I was. It made me feel I bit down on my lip hard. I had no need for that trash on my body. I dug my nails into my arms. I had no need for that trash on my body. All of this, every last bit of it. That was why I was the way I was. I didn't know how to put it into words. I didn't know how to express this boundless frustration within me. After enough wordless groaning, a single word slipped through my lips, and it felt incredibly right. God damn it! I knew good and well a girl should not be using such words. Even Didier and Georges would have gotten an earful from mother or father if they were caught saying that. Regardless. God damn it, it was the most fitting word I can come up with to represent even the smallest bit of my anger and loathing. I knew all I was doing was shifting the blame. That all it would accomplish was making me look pitiful. But I would take that over crying like a girl any day. That was a sigh that was halfway to being a scream, and then started clawing wildly at my hair. I wanted to yank out every last damn strand of it. I didn't want it. I didn't want any of it. Any of this body. But in that case, what did I want for my body? Michelle? May I come in, Michelle? It was George's voice, slightly muffled from the door. The man who had invited those people into this house. I would be lying to say if I didn't hold that against him. Michelle. But at that same time, he also had come to my rescue. Besides, I hated myself the most. I despised myself for being so helpless. I'm sorry, Michelle. I didn't mean to hurt you. It's not locked. After a few moments of silence, Georgia stepped into my room. Your hair is a mess, Michelle. Oh my god, you're bleeding. I first noticed the stinging sensation in my lower lip. A metallic taste spread through my mouth. I'd been biting it much harder than I realized, and there was a lot more blood than I expected. A trail of it was running down my chin. Seconds from spilling onto my clothes when George has wiped it away. I'm really sorry, Michelle. He can be a real ass when he drinks. He's a bit of a womanizer at that. I never expected he'd try to go after you, though. See you later, Doc. We're hanging out. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. But, you know, there's a chance he may have genuinely taken a liking to you. That just makes it worse. Sorry. You're right. You want to do the man you like, I understand. He ran his hands through his hair, as if trying to calm me down. Through my hair, excuse me, as if trying to calm me down. At the same time, clean up the mess I had made of it. I feel like I have some kind of plaything. Joke of a doll. I don't... I don't want to be with anyone. I would never ever be comfortable with a man putting his hands on me like that. However... I'm sure you'll find someone eventually, Michelle. Well, it feels right for you. I feel kind of awful for introducing you to him, but there are plenty of men in the world. Might not be interested now, but that'll change soon. Part of growing up. Be best off forgetting today ever happened. He's dead certain, but apparently that wasn't enough to convince him. The very idea that I might one day meet a man who I wanted to touch me made my skin crawl. Why? Why did I feel like this? Was I just not interested in men? No, if that was the case, I wouldn't admire my brother's body. I didn't have an aversion to men. In fact, I enjoyed spending time with my brothers far more than indulging my mother in her woman's world. What I couldn't stand was the particular look men would sometimes give me. But why? Why did I not like that? I had no answer. My thoughts were only going in circles. Are you okay, Michelle? He peered down at me, his face twisted in concern. I couldn't answer him. Supposed to articulate this. My anger, my frustration, my irritation, my fear. I had no confidence he would understand. Or just, how's Michelle? Amy's voice came from the doorway. Inexplicably, I felt like someone had stuck their hand in my chest and was now squeezing my heart. Like I'd just been caught in a compromising situation by the last person I wanted to see me. Ah, yeah, she's doing good, aren't you? Yes, I'm fine. Glad to hear it. I was quite lying, not even looking him in the eyes when I said that. But that seemed to have gone over George's head. Amy, on the other hand, don't look fine at all. She said, a hint of pain in her voice, and then entered the room. George's father was asking for you. He says it's time to bring the gathering to a close. You should get going. I'll stay here with her. Oh, is he? Alright then. Sounds good. Once the sound of George's footsteps had faded into nothing, Amy took a seat beside me and, without warning, wrapped her arms around my shoulders. Much better to talk to another girl at times like this. My heart leapt into my throat, but beyond the shock, I also found myself welcoming the warmth. It was pleasant, unlike a man's. Are they really going to be this ham-fisted? That must have been terrifying. But don't worry, you're safe now. It wasn't really... No need to pretend, sweetie. If a man had pinned me against a wall, I'd be scared too. I mean it. I wasn't scared. I'm just disappointed in myself. Yeah, I don't... This is not, Alright, I believe you. You're a strong girl, Michelle. There aren't many who wouldn't have been scared. Scared. I mean, both probably work, whatever. I'll be sure to give George a stern talking to about his choice in friends. Something I learned today is that he's somewhat of a pushover. You're a lot more tenacious than I thought. As a woman in this world, you have to be. If you're not, well, we'll figure it out soon enough, Michelle. Of course, even as strong as you are, it will be difficult to forget what happened to you today. George had told me to forget it as soon as possible, and Amy that I wouldn't be able to. Was it the difference in their individual perspectives? Or was it the difference between the way men and women thought? I wasn't sure. My head rested against her breast. A bit of my frustration slipped out. I couldn't move my arms at all. It didn't seem all that strong. I couldn't believe that I was really so weak. Just the way of the world, Michelle. Men are physically stronger than women. You almost never overpower one. You're not any weaker than a normal girl. Don't blame yourself. Though it wasn't the consolation I had hoped for, her words still filled me with warmth. I explained my own weakness to hear.
We have some gold to steal.
To hear more of that soothing voice, and I alone knew how foolish I was doing so. Two, 3, 4. Okay, we're 4 into this 12 chapter thing, so I don't know how long it actually turned out. But this is where we're going to be calling it. That was a lot of reading, and I'm hungry. And I'm not too sure how to put it. It kind of sucked in the beginning because, again, I have to repeat all the same story again and again and again with just little tiny minor tweaks. And even this one, I don't just say I hate being a girl, I don't like girls, I don't like guys. Just do it. We don't need 10 hours of this. But the middle is really cool. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm definitely starting to be a little less interested in this